Is it time? It's time, 6:30? Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of East Providence City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. May we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And for those who have hats, I ask that you kindly take them off. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. Deputy Clerk, may we start off with a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon,
Here, ma'am.
Councilman Morato.
Here.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Here.
Councilwoman Souza. Here. Council President Brito.
Here. There is no items for executive session, so therefore we'll be starting the meeting immediately. Next item, please.
The next item will be the consent calendar. It's to approve the council journals from the joint city council and school committee meeting from May 2nd. We're going to skip the approval of the executive session minutes on May 3rd, and we're going to approve the regular meeting minutes on May 3rd of 2022.
So council journals, we're approving 1 and 3.
Yes,
That's listed on the docket item. Okay.
correct, sir.
Anyone have any objections?
No, I'll move to approve.
Okay. Would anyone like to second that?
Second.
Okay. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote on that, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon,
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
Next item, licenses. These are for discussion or possible vote. It's a non-public hearing. The first one is a one-day entertainment license. It's new. The applicant is Chrissy Rossi at 809 Broadway. It'll be on June 11th, 2022, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and it'll be a DJ.
If Ms. Rossi would like to say anything, or if we can just group this, it is a non-public hearing.
Maybe just
Otherwise, we could just group them all together. That would be licenses A, 1, 2, and 3. Anyone have any objections to grouping these together for approval?
No, Mr. President, move to bundle licenses for approval A1, A2, and A3.
So before we get a second on that motion, Deputy Clerk, do we have any concerns on any of these non-licensed?
Nope.
Everything's all set?
Yep. everyone's
Okay,
got
so there
everything.
is a motion on the floor at this point in time.
Mr. President, could the deputy clerk just read what they are for the benefit of the
Sure.
public here?
Of course. The second one is a block party. The applicant is James D. Fayette. It's at the corner of Harlem Street and Hood Avenue, Harlem Street and Miller Street. It's July 3rd, 2022, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. and there will be no street closures. And the third one is a road race, William, and I apologize, Tregaskis. It's at 201 Mercer Street, which is Pierce Field. It's on June 25th, 2022 at 8 a.m.
Okay, so the first motion is to bundle
Correct.
the 3, and then we'll vote again as a motion.
Second.
Okay, Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote on this, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council President Brito.
Aye.
Mr. President, move to approve the bundled licenses.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the bundle licenses. Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
Deputy Clerk?
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Aye. Council President Brito.
Aye. Next one would be proclamations and presentations. That's going to be put off for this
Yes, it is.
period.
Correct.
We're going to move right along, Deputy Clerk.
We do not have any
There's
communications.
no communications at this time.
We do have public comment, but did you want to move the gentleman up for the, did you want to move those resolutions up?
Yeah,
Or do you want to do all of them first?
No, If we could, we have the scout leaders here that I have proclamations for that we all signed. So before we go into public comment, I was just wondering if it's okay if we move this up on the resolution, that is, it's
No objection.
with no objection at this point in time. I would like to take the lead and read the resolution recognizing first and foremost Matthew Lloyd. You want to step up, please? Scouts on. Yeah, I remember I used to do this myself when I was a scout. On my honor, I'll do my best to do my duty. I know the words. Only the words that I had mentioned. All right, let me go up here. State of Rhode Island, City of East Providence, Resolution number 201, resolution recognizing Matthew Lloyd for having reached the rank of Eagle Scout. Whereas Matthew Lloyd is a native of California and East Providence resident residing at 121 Don Avenue, Rumford. And whereas Matthew is a son of Annette Lloyd and of Staten Island, New York, and Scott Lloyd of Garden Grove, California. And whereas Matthew has a Cub Scout with Pack 88 in Rumford, Rhode Island, and whereas Matthew joined Boy Scouts with Troop 1 Seacon, whereas Matthew held the highest leadership position as a Troop Senior Patrol Leader, and whereas Matthew earned 31 merit badge, plus a bronze, gold, and silver Eagle Palms, and whereas Matthew is a commanding officer of the Coventry High School Navy Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps, better known as NJROTC, and whereas the NJROTC program was established by public law in 1964, whereas the program is conducted in accredited secondary schools throughout the nation and taught by instructors who are retired Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard officers and enlisted personnel. And whereas Matthew is an active member of Bridgepoint Christian Church First Impressions team, and whereas when Matthew is not busy with his NJRTOC and Bridgepoint, he spends his time perfecting his drum groove on the drums thrown at the amateur drummer. As an amateur drummer, Matthew completed his Eagle project, the restoration of Rhode Island Historical Cemetery, SC 119, Situate, Rhode Island. And whereas Matthew reached Eagle Scout, the highest rank in Scouts, Boy Scouts of America, on November 8, 2021. Now, therefore, be it resolved, City Council of the City of East Providence hereby recognizes Matthew Lloyd and his achievements in reaching the rank of Eagle Scout, the highest rank in Scouts, BSA. In recognition, whereas we are hereby set our hands in the cause of seal of the City of East Providence, hereto to affix on the 17th day of May 2022. And this is a proclamation, a resolution recognizing Matthew for his leadership in the Scouts. So Matthew, I want to congratulate you. Very good.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
do you want to vote on each of those in turn, or do you want to read through them all first?
Excuse me?
Do you want to vote on each one of those as you read them, or do you want to go through all of them first?
You mind if I go through them first and then we vote on them? Because they're different for each individual. Otherwise, I would have just read one of them. Okay, this is Michael Pereira. Congratulations, Michael. State of Rhode Island, City of East Providence, resolution number 200, resolution recognizing Michael Pereira for having reached the rank of Eagle Scout. Whereas Michael Pereira is a native of Riverside and currently resides in East Long Meadow, Massachusetts, residing at 340 Kib Road. Whereas Michael is a son of Lori Pereira and Joseph Pereira, and whereas Michael was a Cub Scout with Pack 88 in Rumford, Rhode Island, and whereas Michael joined the Boy Scouts in Troop 1 in Seacon, and whereas Michael held the highest leadership position as a Troop Senior Patrol Leader, and whereas Michael earned 36 merit badges plus the bronze, gold, and silver Eagle Ponds. And whereas Michael attended St. Margaret School in Rumford and Mount St. Charles Academy. Whereas Michael played with the Rumford Soccer League and the high school volleyball and swim teams. Whereas Michael is a student of Western New England University, majoring in information technology. Whereas when Michael is not busy with his studies, he spends his time performing with the WNEU drumline to increase his school spirit, apply computer machinery, the campus food committee, and campus activities board. And whereas Michael completed his Eagle Scouts, the building and installation of 2 flag retirement boxes. Whereas Michael reached Eagle Scout, the highest rank in Scout Boy Scouts of America, on February 8, 2021. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of East Providence hereby recognizes Michael Pereira and his achievement in reaching the rank of Eagle Scout, the highest rank in Scout BSA. In recognition hereof, we have hereby set our hands and cause the seal of the City of East Providence on hereon affixed this 17th day of May 2022. Thank you, Mr. Pereira. And last but not least, Andrew Langley. State of Rhode Island, City of East Providence, resolution number 202, resolution recognizing Andrew Langley for having reached the rank of Eagle Scout. Whereas Andrew Langley is a resident of Rumford residing at 169 Bonnie Street, and whereas Andrew is the son of Donna and Jason Langley. And whereas Andrew was a Cub Scout with Pack 88 in Rumford, Rhode Island, and whereas Andrew joined the Boy Scouts with Troop 1 in Seekonk. Whereas Andrew held the position of Troop Webmaster, and whereas Andrew earned 23 merit badges. And whereas Andrew attended East Providence High School, where he participated in Cyber Patriot and was a member of the East Providence High School robotic and swim team. Whereas established by Air Force Association, the Cyber Patriot National Youth Cyber Educational Program was created to excite, educate, and motivate students towards career in cybersecurity and other science, technology, engineering, and mathematics disciplines critical to our nature's future. Whereas Andrew is an electrical engineer student at the University of Rhode Island. Whereas Andrew completed his Eagle Scouts, creation of a trail, an outdoor meeting place for Seekonk Congregational Church. And whereas Andrew reached Eagle Scout, the highest rank in Scout Boy Scout of America, on March 29, 2021. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of East Providence hereby recognizes Andrew Langley as in his achievements in reaching the rank of Eagle Scout, the highest rank in Scouts BSA. In recognition whereof, we have hereby set our hands on the cause of the seal of the City of East Providence, and hereunto affix this 17th day of May 2022. Andrew, congratulations. Gentlemen, thank you for everything that you've done, and more importantly, what you have achieved. Big accomplishment.
Mr. President, I would move approval of the 3 resolutions as you've just read.
Second.
So we have a approval for the resolutions as read 200, 201, 200, 202 from Councilman Roderick, seconded by Councilwoman Souza. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Thank you again. Okay.
We are moving on to public comment.
Let me just read more.
You want to read them? No. First up is Jane Crevier.
By the way, just one comment. We do have two resolutions on the docket this evening, so anyone wishing to speak for or against those, this will be the opportunity to speak during public comment. The resolutions will not be discussed, or will not be a public hearing. So this, if you haven't had the opportunity to sign this, please step up now and sign this. Otherwise, you will not be able to speak during the resolution discussion. Please.
I thought I had to state my name. Okay,
Yeah.
so how we went from five
Yeah,
out
if
of,
you could just-
oh, I
if
do,
you could
I do.
just state your name for
Jane
the record and
Previa,
address.
Cobb Street. How we went from 5 out of 6 council members supporting KMG to only 2 is something we're still trying to figure out. And so tonight, KMG is presenting petitions, and it was brought on by a conversation I had with Councilman Rodrick. And I asked him that very same question, like, what happened? And what changed? And his question was, well, of all the members that we have, how many actually live in East Providence? So I said, well, if I show you how many live in East Providence, would that make you rethink? And he said, I guess I would have to, because I like to think that I represent and listen to the people. So in less than 4 weeks, and this is door to door, not online, we received 1,045 signatures of East Providence voters who feel that this matter needs to be something that they can vote on and decide. All the signatures were a combination of all of our members' efforts. They downloaded the form. They went door to door. They brought it to outings and parks. They stopped at our rallies on Saturday morning, pulled over, signed it. They came to our houses, met us in coffee shops. So it wasn't just the administrators that did this. This was the city. And I hope that that alone makes you stop and remember that as council members, you speak for the people in your districts, and we got all the zip codes. It's not just Riverside or Romford or East Providence. Over 1,000 signatures in less than 4 weeks definitely says something. This is something you need to listen to. And so we have more people that want to present on their own. The city wants to vote. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
Ms. Crevia, when you say 5 out of 6, what do you mean by 5 out of 6?
Well, you
council
won't,
members.
the high school meeting, the old high school, we have the tape where only you were the only one that didn't want to even think about this.
Mhm.
And now we just have Anna and Ricardo. So I just don't understand what happened with Bobby and with Nate. You were always against it. That's fine.
So 3 out
Sorry,
of
did
5.
I get the
3
number
out of
wrong?
5.
Okay, that's what I
Okay.
meant. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
All right, thank
All
you.
right, you're welcome.
And Ellen Lowell is next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ellen Lowell, and I live at 21 Fisher Street in East Providence, and I am a direct abutter to Metacomet Golf Course, the 8th hole to be exact. And I would like to present these signatures on the petitions to have it go on the ballot, and let the people of East Providence decide what's going to happen.
All right, you can hand that
Right
to the
here.
deputy clerk. Yes.
You know what? I forgot to get mine.
So are they redundant?
No.
Okay.
1,045 individuals.
Just mark it A, B.
Yeah.
A, B, as you go on. Yeah.
Kate Pizzulo?
Hi, my name's Kate Pizzulo. I live on Spring Street in Riverside. I would like to just urge that you allow the voters in East Providence to decide on this piece of land. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, please. David O'Connell?
David O'Connell, 229 Bright Ridge Avenue. Before I give my comments, I'd like to make a note on the wording of the resolution itself. I think there are 2 major flaws in it. First, the third whereas says the residents of the city of East Providence have strenuously objected to this development. All of the residents have not objected to this. Some of the residents have objected. And this implies that all of the residents of East Providence are opposed to the Metacomet development. So the wording in here is wrong. And it should be corrected if in fact you do go forward, which I hope you do not. Secondly, the other flaw would be, shall the city of East Providence, as the word on the resolution, on the final vote, shall the city of East Providence East Providence City Council take appropriate and legal measures to acquire the property. You know the words. There's no dollar amount in there. If you were to do that, you would certainly want to tell the people, sure, we'd like to take the land, but you need to tell them how much it's going to cost. The cost is a major issue here. I don't know if it's going to be 7 million, 10 million, 20 million. Nobody knows what that's going to be. But if you're going to put that on a ballot issue as a referendum, the dollar amount definitely should be in there, as it would be anywhere else. Meanwhile, I hope you never put this forward anyway, as I will say. As I have said before, and you know who I am, it would be absolutely unfair and unjust to the private developer who has bought this land on the up and up, done it properly, followed all the laws and regulations, and intends to develop the land according to the laws and regulations of the city. I would not want anybody else to have to go through eminent domain because some people object to it. It's personal property that they have correctly and legally purchased, and they should be allowed to go forward with it. It would be unfair to them to take it away. The second reason is it's not necessary. Eminent domain, as I understand, and I hope most people do, is to be used in a drastic situation when you have to put through a highway exit, or you have to put in a reservoir for public use, or you have to put in a power plant for utilities, something major that's absolutely necessary for the future of the city. This is not necessary. A park, another park for the city to take and confiscate this land for is not necessary. And therefore eminent domain, which is basically a nuclear option, should not be used to take it away. I know some people will be disappointed, but many other people will be disappointed if you did take it by eminent domain, I being one of them, and a number of others. I have my own petition. It's far less than what KMG has, because I'm just one guy. They have many people, we already know that, and they're organized, and that's fine. But I have my own petition, which says, basically, we, the undersigned, do not want the city of East Providence to invoke eminent domain to take Metacomet. And I've got signatures, and I've only got 28 signatures, nowhere near 1,000. But everyone I've asked has never, no one I've asked has ever said, no, I don't want to sign it. Everyone I asked wants to sign it. And I'll continue to do that. That's fine. They're larger than, thank you. They're larger than I am, but there are plenty of people in East Providence, and I'm sure there are many more than these few signatures that I have so far, and that I'll continue to gather, don't want you to take it by eminent domain. Not just me and a few people who speak here, but plenty of people do not want you to do that. One note I would make about the KMG petition, there was something on social media, which I'm on social media regularly, and it was either on East Providence for East Providence, or it was on Towney Truth. But someone from KMG was directing people to go to the headquarters, the people's headquarters over on Broadway, where there are some of the candidates for office have their headquarters, and telling them that they could go there and sign their petition. That sounds okay, except for one thing. Last fall, KMG received 501c3 status. And in that stipulation, the regulation is they should have nothing to do with any politician, political candidate, or any cause that is political. They placing their petition within a headquarters for a political candidate is a violation of that regulation of a 501c3, and it should be discontinued because of that.
Are you all set, Mr. O'Connell?
Just about. Last thing I would say is it's your fiduciary responsibility, as you well know, I'm not telling you anything, but your fiduciary responsibility to spend our money properly and as necessary, not frivolously, not excessively, not based on a whim or a wish. I ask you to maintain that fiduciary responsibility, not spend my money on something we don't need. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, please.
What is?
My typo? Okay.
I think it's gonna do this.
Yeah, my name is Mike Teipel.
and I live on South Broadway. And I'm proud tonight to present over 260 signatures. And these people would like to have at least a say in this decision. We're talking about a piece of property that's squarely in East Providence. It's been there in the beginning of time. It's a piece of property that will never be replaced. It's a piece of property. And I believe that if you would listen to the people that live in this city, that this is just a small amount of people. Of course, not everyone, as this gentleman suggested, will believe this type of logic. But I believe that the majority of people in East Providence understand that one of the most important things that we can do as a city is to keep the precious green space that we have now. We've lost so much in the last 100 years. We've given it away to oil companies. We've given it away to developers. We've given it away to people that had no business taking that land. And in this particular land, yes, some private people own it. And in my opinion, and this is my opinion, it was a pretty shady deal. It was not put on the market. It was put in an opportunity zone that really has no business being an opportunity zone. And, you know, for God's sake, let the people vote on this issue. That's all we're asking. We're not asking to, you know, anything else other than that. If we're a small minority, it'll show up in the voters' registration in November. If we're a majority, like I believe we are, then maybe we can move the city into the corrected position. But 3 people shouldn't be allowed to make this decision over this type of property. That's a beautiful piece of property, will never, ever, ever be reproduced in the city of East Providence. You'll never get that property back under any circumstances. And sure, this is a very dramatic event to have to do eminent domain. I'm not a person that would lightly expect eminent domain to be taken someone's property. But this is not something to be taken lightly. This is the chance for East Providence to really create a city beautiful. And, you know, it's really your only chance. So this is one last chance you folks have to make it right, in my opinion. Here's the petition.
Next person, please.
Next is Heather Andrade.
Good evening. I am Heather Andrade, one of the 3 leaders of Keep Metacomet Green, a nonprofit group of like-minded individuals whose mission it is to save the land of Metacomet Golf Course from being razed by Marshall Properties. KMG has stood in front of the city council many, many times in the past 23 months since the original plan of destructions by Marshalls was discovered. And for the most part, we have had to fight our own elected and non-elected officials of East Providence in trying to convince them that this 140 acre of green space should be saved for future benefits for all of East Providence, for all of Rhode Island, and frankly, for the world, for climate change. While KMG has been fighting to save this land, some of our elected politicians have been fighting us pretty hard and seem to be on the side of the developer, Marshall Properties, no matter what East Providence residents are saying. For God's sakes, resident after resident got up and spoke against this plan to city council members, spoke to planning board meetings, comprehensive plan meetings, and no one is listening. I can't say no one because you two are. We are here. KMG is here. Keep Metacomet Green is here. We are the people whose best interest you must consider. That is why we elected you. Your job as council members is to listen to what the people you serve are saying to you. In just under 4 weeks, Keep Metacomet Green's petition is to put the eminent domain bond referendum on the ballot and let the people vote on it has attracted interest from every corner of East Providence. We as East Providence residents do have the right to say what can happen in our neighborhoods through all of East Providence. And I am dumbfounded that 3 of you up here are ignoring what you can no longer deny. KMG received 1,045 signatures on that petition, not even 1 month 1,045 signatures of people who want to vote on this. How many, plus with the 28 that Mr. O'Connell had, and he did say that nobody turned him down, which is our point. Let's vote. How many more signatures do you need to see to realize it is time for the people to have their voices heard? Time for the people to make decisions on what we want for our city. If nothing else, this situation has opened hundreds, well, actually 1,045 of residents' eyes as to what is happening to the people's voice in East Providence. We are being pushed out by politicians who have their own agenda and their own plan for themselves. I present these signatures of the 1,045 people in less than 1 month that want to vote, that want to have a say in what happens in their neighborhood and what happens in their city and what happens to their neighbors. Thank you.
Rob McNeil? Is that what it is? McNeilis? Okay.
Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Can you just state your name for the record, please?
Robert McNeilis. Very humbled by the number of green shirts out there in the audience tonight. And I understand this is an important issue and everyone's opinion matters. I'm glad to see the council listening to these people. However, I'm going to advise against putting this on the ballot for several reasons. Most of them have already been alliterated by Mr. O'Connell here. But the one I'm going to try to emphasize, I don't know if he touched on too much though, is this is a complicated issue. It's prone to a passionate crowd. Look at this passionate crowd. It's a very passionate crowd with good reason, with very good reason. Their passions and their opinions matter more than mine because a lot of them, as I said, live right next to the property. However, a vote could lead, if put on the ballot, a vote there could lead to where the people with the best of intentions vote for something that ends up yielding unfortunate, unforeseen consequences. We haven't really talked about what the cost is going to be on this. We haven't talked about what the upkeep is going to be on this. We don't know what the interest on any bond is going to be, where this money is going to necessarily come from. As Mr. O'Connell pointed out, the resolution as written, even if you're in favor of putting it on the ballot, this resolution should not go on the ballot because it's overbroad in my opinion. I'm a fairly smart guy, but he kind of pointed out, the city council shall take all appropriate legal measures. Where does that end? Where can someone show me a line? Voting for this proposal to put this on the ballot with a passionate crowd, and I believe it would carry. This referendum would probably carry at the ballot, but it could tie the city's hands to the unreasonable demands of a developer. And I don't think anyone here wants that. Alexander Hamilton wrote about the legislature in the Federalist Papers that it would be the body that would be a cooling saucer for the tempers of the masses. The idea being that some matters take time and attention that most people can't spend time to. I work full time. I have a small child. I'm a fairly smart guy. I don't see all the stuff that you guys do. You're all smart and qualified people. Every last one of you. I've had a chance to talk to all of you. People are saying, oh, we haven't had a vote. They have when they put you here on the panel. I'd ask you all to find a compromise resolution that best fits the interest of all. Not everyone's going to be happy necessarily, but at least some decisions should be made by people who are dedicated and knowledgeable with facts that I just don't have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, please. Chrissy Rossi.
Chrissy Rossi, and she's to speak on the Memorial Day Parade.
Thank you. I'm Chrissy Rossi, and I'm here to speak about the Memorial Day Parade. Before I do, I would just like to correct the Facebook sleuth sitting behind me. I was the one who put that out there. I am not a board member of KMG, and I pretty much feel like I can sit anywhere I'd like to collect my petition signatures. Now, moving on to the parade. Last year, I don't know whether or not we did receive at the American Legion a donation, but I do remember that we asked for it. And this year, we reached out to Councilman Morato to see if he could secure $1,000 from the public celebrations line item. And if you guys can find your way to get that on the docket, I saw it's not on here this meeting, but if you could put it on for the next meeting, there's still time. We buy hot dogs, buns, water, and hoodie cups for the kids. And this year, we've got a lot of kids. We've got all three bands back in the parade. We have a drum corps. We have all three little leagues, unheard of. I mean, great things, outpouring of the community. And I wish I had a chance to speak before the Eagle Scouts left because they are all invited too. I just don't have everybody's contact information. So I would just like to say, if anyone listening is a veteran and you would like to participate, we have arranged for a float for the veterans. The youth groups that are marching with us, if you could please just show up at the old Oldham School on Bullocks Point Avenue. We'll be staging from 10 to 11, and we step off the curb from Old Oldham at 11 a.m. This year, the parade is dedicated to the past commander of the Legion, Bobby Winston. Sorry, great guy. And we wanted to honor him. So if you have any questions, 401-481-1721, you can reach out to me. I'll tell you how to get involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chrissy, may I ask you one question while you're here, just so everybody can hear? The staging time at Oldham, is that 10 o'clock for all participants?
Yeah, you can start coming at 10, by 10 o'clock, 10:30. We have all the walkers on the grass next to the school. And then all the parade people will come and they line up, everybody facing out to Bullocks. So you'll park on the back side of Providence Avenue, up that little street. I forget the name of it, but it's between the woods and the school.
Yep.
And then all the way up. And we all step off and I'd be like lining people up. So I gotta split them up because we got bands and DJs and all sorts of fun stuff. So I have to kind of tell you when to go. But aside from that, just get everybody together and just celebrate.
Got it. Thank you.
Can you keep the bands more where we march? It's more fun for us. with
I
the
was gonna
bands.
get you a DJ with the 70s and 80s music, Bob. That's like right up your
And
alley.
seriously, I have no problem with helping out financially. I've never heard of it until just now. So if you've asked the council, it has not come to me or any of us, but if we have time to vote on it and see what's left in the ceremonies account, it's okay by me.
Okay, super. We had reached out to Councilman Morato because it's his ward.
Yeah,
So-
I'm sure we'll figure it out somehow, but I don't want you to think we heard about it and didn't act on it,
Okay,
didn't know about it.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Rick Lawson.
Hello. I'll be brief. I got a couple of things. I'm against the eminent domain. I'm not gonna get into the weeds. I've stated my piece. It was said earlier, what's changed? What changed was you guys did your due diligence. You spent 26,000 on an appraisal, lawyers, and it was deemed at that meeting that it wasn't feasible. You are the people's voice. You listened, you did your due diligence, and it was determined that it wasn't feasible. So I would like to hear tonight with an open mind, open ears, what is the plan for this property if you do take it by eminent domain? I mentioned buying a golf course, people jump on me and say, that's not what we're trying to do. Well, what is the plan? How much money are you looking to borrow and what are you trying to do with the property? I understand saving it, but there's gonna be a little bit more to it. That's a very vague thing. So that's it for that. The school, I want to strongly support the school bond issue coming up. I attended the meeting of the joint school committee and you folks. Clearly laid out the needs at Martin Middle School, at Warrington School. Down in Riverside, we could use some extra class space. Moving the preschool kids out of Oldham into a central location at Martin is a fabulous idea. We need to be proactive. Senator Ruggiero, President Biden, they want to expand pre-K. Are we ready for that? Are we being proactive? This plan, I think, shows that we're being proactive. Adding classroom spaces to alleviate crowding in Warrington, centralizing the pre-K so the principals not jump into two buildings. And the plan alone for mine, it's gorgeous. And I hope more residents see it and they support. So I am in strong support of the agenda item today, put it on the ballot. I support Chrissy with the money for the raffle. I mean, the parade. I think the last few years, the Legion didn't have the numbers of people coming in that usually throw some money in the bucket. So if the city can help them out, like the kids are the ones that enjoy the hot dogs, hamburgers and stuff. So I don't need any more, but. And the last thing I want to say is it's National Police Week. I want to thank EPPD, Councilman Morado, my friends and family who are cops. And I hope everybody takes a moment to appreciate the job of a law enforcement officer. The political climate these days, it's kind of tough to be a cop. I think as a city, we need to stand up and show our support for the EPPD. They are the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony Facenda. Is there Anthony? No? Okay. That concludes public comment at this point in time. Did you sign up? Oh, step up, please.
For giving me that
Sure.
opportunity. I'm Dr. Ashley Lakin, 60.
Can you speak it to the mic so we can hear you, please?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yes. I can take this off also. I'm Dr. Ashley Lakin. I'm at 64 Channing Ave, Riverside. And I'm actually grateful for the opportunity to give a comment, not on any of the topics that have come up so far, but on the proposal to expand the overlay. So I'm a potential occupant of 502 Bullocks Point Avenue. I would really like to start a family medicine practice there. I've actually started the practice and I'm currently practicing out of an office temporarily in East Greenwich. I practiced for 5 years in East Providence at East Bay Community Health and would love to bring my now practice back into Riverside. I'm a family doctor, so I take care of people from birth to death and love caring for entire families. And expanding the overlay would give me the opportunity to do that so close to home and reconnect with a lot of the families I used to take care of in East Providence. So I would love to see that happen and I'm grateful for the council for considering it.
Thank you. And if I'm not mistaken, that's not for public hearing as well. Okay, that concludes public. Okay. State your name for the record, please.
Linda Lee from Riverside, Bullocks Point Ave. I'd just like to say that, have any of you ever been to the White Mountains in New Hampshire? And I used to live in East Greenwich and I'd always go to Goddard Park. And such a beautiful place. And I'd just like to see Rhode Island save one more piece of land. We've got Colt State Park. We've got Roger Williams. We've got Goddard Park. And I'd love to see East Providence have a beautiful jewel like that with just a place to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That final? That concludes public comment at this time. We'll move right along to the next item, please.
Next item is council members. First item is Towney Pride Park. Begin to beautify and build a tranquil environment for all genders. Discussion, Councilwoman Souza.
So I'll just be brief on this. Over the last few years, started about 5 or 6 years ago, we renamed Jones's Pond to Towney Pride Park. We had begun beautification, planting, cleaning up in the pond and around the pond. And the council at that time and this current council dedicated funds to continue the work to make that a space where all people of the city, regardless of who you were, could enjoy the space peacefully, take a walking path. We did start making some modifications to the walking path and a plan was in place to continue that work. Unfortunately, no work has stopped for the over 4 years. Nothing's been done to that place. I've had a lot of residents in the neighborhood and throughout the city who continue to go there with hopes that some work would start again. I have recently, since the days have gotten nicer, seen residents bringing their own lawn chairs because there's no seating there, which was one of the plans, to have benches and seating so that people could enjoy the wildlife in the pond, the birds. But none of that has taken place. So again, I've mentioned this to the administration a couple of times. I just want to put it out there again. There are people who want to see this move forward. I know other things have become priorities in other parts of the city. But, you know, we have to take everybody's experience in the city, not just things that are sports, into account. Not everybody plays sports, not everybody's involved, and some people just want a place that they can go and relax and be in their own space without any judgment or feeling like they have to be inclusive with everybody else. So if we could get, you know, some movement on that, I'd really appreciate a meeting and a conversation again, so that we could put that into play. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Next item, please.
Next item, request that the administration seek a traffic.
Hold on one moment, please.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Eric.
Eric Stanford, city engineer. So we are working on a couple of things. I just want to update you. We are going to be installing 3 fountains at the park. We're going through and getting the permits and the electrician to go and do that work. We just submitted plans to DEM to install a gazebo kind of in that northwest corner. So things are moving forward. It is taking time. I apologize for that, but we have not forgotten about that part. So
Yeah, since you're up here, do you know what, so we had a couple of years ago, or a few years ago, we had acquired funds through a grant for lighting in the park for safety. And probably 8 months ago, I noticed that all those lightings have been, it looks like sawzawed off the post. Are you aware of that, or did the city?
I believe they were vandalized, but I can look into that.
Yeah.
And see, I think we have plans for that also. It's something a little more substantial than what. we
Okay,
did.
all right, good. Thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate the update.
Next item, request that the administration seek a traffic study by RIDA on Warren Avenue headed towards County Street for a designated left turn only lane as you approach the traffic light in front of Honeydew Donuts and Lucky's Bar. Discussion only, Councilwoman Souza.
So this is something that I've been discussing for a while with residents, business owners in that area. This, if people are not aware, is where Honeydew and Lucky's is, that traffic light coming from Seekonk and on both directions, actually. So the way that intersection or path is set up is we have on the Mass side, they have redone their road and created a double lane to stop the bottlenecking that happens towards the Exxon in Seekonk. And then we go in, it goes into a 1 lane at Lucky's, where now you have people that comes off of Seekonk and East Providence, that was 2 lanes. There should be a designated lane, much like I had requested, and it did happen at Warren Avenue, where we go on to the highway at the name's gonna throw me. Thank you. I couldn't think of too many coffee shops going through my head right now. So Sip and Dip, we've created that single lane to turn, which made that traffic flow a lot better. That area in front of Lucky's also, in my opinion, I think would benefit from that turn lane. And I'm not an engineer, so again, that's why I'm asking for the traffic request, the study. I think it would make sense that after the bridge, those 2 lanes would then turn into 2 lanes going 1 straight to Seekonk, designating that 1 lane, and then 1 designating as a turn, so that it doesn't bottleneck. It gets very busy back there, and especially on the weekends or during home hours, it backs up the whole traffic when you have people trying to turn, and it just 1 lane, and people can't go forward, they can't turn because the traffic's not letting them turn. So that area, I think there's a good solution there, and I would just like to see the city put forth a request to have the state look at that, if they can, or if it's something that we can just do. I think it'd be beneficial to the business owners and the residents. Come on up, Eric. Thank you.
If I may, thank you. So yes, this is something that we agree, it should definitely be done. Back on April 12th, we did submit a letter to DOT requesting them to look into what kind of improvements they can make over there. One of the issues is when you're coming off of Waterman Avenue, taking a right onto Warren Avenue. With the trucks there, they need those 2 lanes to actually make that swing. So one of the suggestions we're making is they move the curbing back at Honeydew so that a truck can actually make it and stay in their own lane. That would open up the 2 lanes to go eastbound into Seacon.
Okay.
So they are looking into that, and actually, the woman I've been in touch with, she was sending it off to the scoping office at DOT, and they'll be looking at it with their consultant and the Office of Safety.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you, Eric.
Next item, Huntsville Bridge closure, request for DPW to engage in conversation with DOT for pedestrian walkway while bridge is closed, information only. Council President Brito.
During the last council meeting, I had mentioned about the Huntsville Bridge being closed August 19th to November 30th of this year. My understanding with the RIDOT. However, now I'm being told that not only cars will not have access to that bridge during during that time, but people will not be having the opportunity to go back and forth as well. So I'm asking the city to engage in those conversations so it can be some form of a pedestrian walkway so people can travel back and forth or to and from one side of the Turner Reservoir or even Huntsville as well itself. So again, I don't know if these conversations have taken place with RIDOT, but I'm just requesting going forward. You don't have to come up and speak. I'm just requesting that just allow the residents or the people in that particular area to have access to going to and from one side of the bridge to the other side of the bridge. But again, I want to inform everyone that Huntsville Bridge on Pleasant Street in the northern part of the city in Rumford will be closed. Right now it's scheduled for August 19th through November 30th. And it's going to be closed during that time. There will be no traffic whatsoever. So there's not going to be a temporary road set up that you can access to and from. You're going to have to go completely around in one direction or the other. Thank you.
Council President, before we move forward, I figured this would be the opportunity on the council members section of the docket to bring up the American Legion donation from the council to the American Legion for the post celebrations.
Can you just make a formal motion?
That we amend the agenda. We just have a discussion about it. Thank you.
Correct. I would like to amend the agenda, if we could, to include $1,000 towards the American Legion Memorial Day Parade post festivities.
So just for clarification, last year, there was a discussion about how we sponsored the event as well as a city. There was
Correct.
a discussion at the council and that money.
Correct. So last year I asked Assistant Solicitor Dillon to look into, a few weeks ago, I had him look into the same resolution that we did last year. Turns out that we never did a resolution. It was just a discussion. We all agreed. So I kind of dropped the ball. I didn't follow through with putting it on the docket this time. And
well, Councilman, if I'm not mistaken, last year, the administration said it was going to come out of one of the accounts that we had discussed at that point in time. We had talked about there's a Live Nation account.
Can we just amend the agenda and then we can have this discussion?
I'm sorry.
I seconded that already.
Okay, so we have a motion and we'll second it. Deputy Clerk, may we have a vote so we can have a discussion on this matter, please?
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Okay. So I was just saying that last year, if I'm not mistaken, though, however, I don't think you dropped the ball. I think what had happened was the administration stepped up and said that they would contribute the $1,000.
saying
Did they
that I
not?
dropped the ball on not placing it on the docket for this meeting.
Okay.
I take responsibility.
Mhm.
I had asked the Assistant Solicitor to look into the same resolution and mimic the same resolution for this meeting. And the response was that we never did a resolution last year, and I completely forgot the back and forth communication. He did say that we can take it out of programming or general office. Programming is $3,200 in that account, and general office is $2,500 in that account. We can take it out of Live Nation. I really don't care where we take it out of. I'm just trying to help the Legion with the post parade festivities.
We do have a council account.
You could do that as well. Yeah.
Okay, so
I
I
think
think the councilman just mentioned the 2 council accounts that we could take the funds out.
two council accounts, what are the second accounts?
Programming and general office.
I believe you guys have a
a celebration.
I believe
We
so.
I don't believe we have that line item anymore. It's
No.
not labeled by that.
I can go grab the
Title.
budget if you want.
But either way, if,
So
I'll make
you
a
want to
motion
form it
either
into a
way.
motion then?
But we can't take a vote to appropriate the money because it's not on the agenda. We just discussion only because that's what the law allows, only discussion. You can't take a formal vote. It's something that's added. But obviously we have the sense that the money's going to be appropriated. So between now and Memorial Day, we can certainly make sure the check gets cut and then we can approve it at a later date. But that's the sense. So if you give the clerk, give the town clerk the discretion to figure out what account it can come out of. And
So we don't have to take a vote on the $1,000?
well, you can't, you do, but you're gonna have to, I don't think we'll be back before Memorial Day. So,
Correct.
so we get the sense that this will be approved, so we'll approve it retroactively.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Very good. Next item, please.
Next item, ordinances for second passage. An ordinance and amendment of chapter 9 of the revised ordinances of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled miscellaneous offenses, amending section 9-15 entitled purchase, sale, or delivery of tobacco products to persons under 18 prohibited. The summary is change the age to purchase tobacco products in the form of cigarettes, cigars, pipe tobacco, chewing tobacco, snuff, electronic cigarettes, or other forms of electronic nicotine delivery devices to 21 years of age and setting penalties in violation thereof. The sponsor is Councilwoman Souza.
I know this is, we can open it for public comment.
This is a public hearing at this point in time, so anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium.
Good evening. I just want to thank you guys for your time and commitment on this matter. I know we've been kind of back and forth a little bit on this, but I really appreciate you guys taking the time and effort for the safety and public health of our youth. I really do appreciate that. My name is Madeline Marlowe, and although this matter is definitely important to my profession, it's also equally important to me as a resident and mother of 3 teens that attend East Providence High School. Unfortunately, we are in a vaping epidemic in our community and our schools, and you guys are well aware of that. As you may know, each year we lose nearly 1,800 Rhode Islanders to tobacco-related death and disease. Tobacco-related illness is the #1 preventable cause of death in the United States. Unfortunately, a lot of the progress we have made over the last few decades is being reversed due to the emergence of electronic nicotine delivery systems, more commonly known as vapes. Last year, 33% of our high schoolers reported currently using a tobacco product, including an e-cigarette or vaping device. That's pretty much 1/3 of our high schoolers are using pretty much vaping devices. 17.3% of these report buying these vapes from a device from a local retailer, 13.3% with no ID at all, and 3% with a fake ID. Sure.
Speak into the mic so the public can hear you.
Luckily, we know what works, and together we can work toward a tobacco-free future. According to the CDC's 2014 Best Practices for Comprehensive Tobacco Control Programs, state and community interventions for preventing tobacco and nicotine use among youth should include stronger local laws directed at retailers, active enforcement of retailer sales laws, and retailer education and enforcement. Passage of this ordinance is exactly what the CDC meant in its recommendations. A number of federal and state laws already regulate tobacco sales and establish penalties for illegal sales to minors. But these laws each have separate enforcement mechanisms and penalty structures, making it difficult to enforce them at the local level. Local tobacco ordinances, on the other hand, empowers local law enforcement to impose meaningful penalties for illegal sales to minors and ensures compliance with all existing laws, ensuring communities can prioritize enforcement even when state and federal authorities are unable to. Reducing and preventing underage access is one of our best tools in reducing and preventing early onset of nicotine dependence upon our youth. For these reasons, I am in full support of the council's measures to prevent our vulnerable youth population from accessing these devices. I also think and support the council for unanimously adopting a resolution in support of House Bill H7725, related to the regulation and use of sales of cigarettes, other tobacco products, and electronic cigarettes at the local level. As I stated earlier, we know what works together, and together we can work towards a tobacco-free future. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for or against this ordinance? Please approach the podium. If not, public Hearing is now closed. I'll leave it at the discussion for the council at this point in time.
So, we've talked about this for probably over 4 to 6 weeks now, between the times it's come on the docket and off the docket. So I don't think that there's much more that I can add, other than this is a public safety issue, not just locally, but nationally, but on a local level and on even local level. So there's stuff in the state house right now with our delegation that we are seeking for them to approve, so that it helps us, as Madeline mentioned, on our local levels. We can't choose to change people who are of age and have vices and habits. You know, that is your choice. You're an adult. You can make those choices, and you have the consequences that come with them. But for our youth and our children in our school, as good a parents and as role models that coaches are and family members are, they still have a significant amount of peer pressure and will try anything. And I think that's just human nature. And we can't fault people for that. But if we can make it difficult to have access to these things that are addictive and have lifelong consequences for your health and potential other substances, then I think that is doing our due diligence in the healthcare world or for public health. And I see that as one of our roles in legislation, is to make sure that our public health is also being monitored, and that we're taking corrective actions to make sure that the best interest of our community is being representative, along with other things that we do up here. So with that, I'll open up the floor to the rest of the council. And if there are no other comments, I will move for approval.
So we do have a motion on the floor for approval. However, it's at this point in time, anyone have any discussion, further discussion? None. So again, we have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman. Would anyone like to second the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Next item would be new business, would be mayor communications. Appointment requiring council confirmation. Michelle Saucier Rockwell to the planning board, Ward 1 seat. Term would be January 16th, 2022 to January 15th of 2027.
Good evening, Council President.
Good evening, sir.
Michelle has been on the board since 2015. This will be her third term. She's a Rumford resident and truly enjoys being on the planning board.
Motion to approve.
A second.
Roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Next
Well,
item,
we
please.
Skipped over executive sessions, so done.
No reports of other city officials.
No.
None. Not from
None.
the solicitor's office.
Not from the solicitor's office. We're going to move right along to resolutions at this time.
We go to resolution number 4. The resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for the purchase of a John Deere backhoe for the Department of Public Works Highway Division. The sponsor is Council President Brito.
As the resolution indicates, the DPW is looking for a backhoe at a cost of $139,800. This was approved in last year's budget or this year's budget from the capital improvement expense. We all have copies of what exactly that they're looking for. This will improve all the equipment that they have and what is necessary to move the city forward. That's a John Deere backhoe, and the vendor is United Construction and Forestry. I'll leave it open for any discussion at this point in time. If there's no discussion, would anyone like to make a motion?
Council President, just one question, and I don't
Sure.
know who's going to be answering, if it's Eric today, since I think our DPW director is on vacation. I just wanted to know that extension on the backhoe, how long is it, the arm? I'm just wondering if it would be something that would be able to be used to help clean out the pond, if it's long enough. I'm just curious and if you knew what the specs were on it. Okay, all right. It was curious, when I saw it, I was hopeful that it was something that we could use down there to clean out. I didn't have to walk through the middle of
So-
it, pulling out stuff.
It does indicate here it's a 2022 Deere 410 loader backhoe, if that means anything to anyone. DFT4 engine, pilot control, extendable dipper stick, loader coupler, and 4-1 bucket, hydraulic thumb installed, ride control, deluxe cab with radio, AC, and heat on a 60-month ultimate JD link. Now, if you can all interpret that and know what that means, maybe that will answer your question.
Well, I know how to read it. I just didn't, it doesn't have the length.
Oh, there you go.
I'm
That's the
familiar
most you're
with
going, that's the
equipment,
most
I
you're
just
gonna
don't
get
know
tonight.
How long it is. Doesn't give me the length, but I'll Google it. Maybe it'll show me in the further details. I make a motion to approve.
Okay, would anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
Okay, Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon,
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for the construction of a parking lot at Riverside Middle School. The sponsor is Council Vice President Rodrick.
Mr. President, before I read the resolution or some of it, a little background. This is an issue that has been talked about before this council was seated, before the administration was seated, and it's to solve situation that the neighborhood around Riverside Recreation Field, Somerset Avenue, and all of those streets have been pushing for. In fact, when we first were seated, I was receiving complaints, which I still have, kept all the emails and paper complaints from people saying, what are you waiting for? When are you going to do this? And I kept pushing the administration. And of course, there was, which I didn't know at the time, there was RIDE DEM involvement. There were other things that had to be looked into. And the longer we waited, of course, costs go up. So I think the fact of the enlarging of the field area is not this tonight. This is to start by solving the parking problem. If you are familiar with Riverside Recreational Field, which I assume almost everyone is, and I'm there a lot watching family and constituents that participate, it's a nightmare. A few weeks ago, there was so much activity, and talk about something that's used by the community. There was the middle school baseball game, a game that drew dozens and dozens of people. There were the East Providence Junior Towneys football practicing. There even got to be a friendly argument about you're too close to us. You got to get out past the outfield more. There were groups of cheerleaders practicing. There was a small group of random kids just using the little playground. And the parking is such a problem, and not to say that I overstepped my bounds, but cars couldn't move. So Somerset had cars parked on both sides of the street, which you're not supposed to do. Homeowners were coming out upset. Cars literally couldn't move. I get out into the street to help direct some traffic, because again, some people come over to me and said, when are we going to get that parking lot behind the school? And we know there was some controversy about some trees that were removed, fewer than what people think, because when I was there today to check, you see a wall of trees still. I will say that city administration did say they probably erred in, they went in to start the work and didn't tell the neighborhood, okay, we're going to start it today. But the neighborhood knew about it. It's been planned for years. So there's a lot more I could say about background. I won't get into that unless a conversation ensues that calls for that. Then I will. But we've at least got to control that congestion. In fact, a game this week now, for those who aren't aware, in sports is important to me and a lot of people, as well as everything else. I'm not just sports minded. I think if people know me, they know that I can do more than two things at once. I can support sports and support the other things going on in the city. So our Riverside Middle School is undefeated and involved in a potential state championship. They couldn't play there the other day. They had a big game. They had to move it to Glenline Field in Rumford because there was too much activity. And the ball team said, look, we'll just move because the football kids are here, the cheerleaders are there, there's no place to park, so we'll go to Rumford. And that worked, you know, they went there. So that's a long way around saying it's, when I've kept on the mayor's office and the mayor about when are we going to do this, I said I would sponsor this resolution, which does come back with the low bidder to get this parking lot installed, which people using the school can utilize, and we can get the cars off Somerset and surrounding streets for the most part. That's the long story. There were 3 bids for the construction. And the lowest bid was, I won't read word for word, Yard Works in the amount of $412,000. This is money coming from capital. And because of increase in costs, they're going to have to take some money from possibly ARPA. I believe $59,300 will be funded using ARPA funds. That would combine with the $352,700 from the capital improvement funds. And Yard Works Incorporation is the low bidder for construction of this parking lot. And the bottom of the resolution says that we would enter into this agreement in the amount of $412,000 for the construction of the parking lot south of the Riverside Middle School. So that's the long and short of it, in a discussion that has started years ago, and we're just trying now to get this to fruition.
I have some comments and questions that I would like to have addressed. So first of all, the very first line in this resolution mentions received 3 bids for the construction of a multi-use athletic field and associated parking lot. So the way I read this, it's not just for a parking lot, it also includes an athletic field. The issue that I have, and I will not be supporting this resolution tonight without these questions being answered. When this parking lot was first voted on by the previous council, it was for the purpose, as you mentioned, of having a place to have all of that overflow parking off of Somerset and those other finger streets off of Somerset and put onto that parking lot, that new parking space. At the time, that parking lot was engineered to accommodate the current fields, what we have currently there now. This administration has spoke on several occasions of, you know, they wanted a Walmart-sized parking lot and has since been always discussed cutting that parking lot in half. So as it is, you're cutting the parking lot in half, which won't accommodate or potentially will not accommodate the current field situation. And then you're adding another 1 or 2 fields. My concern is, how is that going to resolve the issue? Aren't we going to be right back to the same situation?
Can I answer that? Or you want to finish?
I'll just finish.
Okay.
Don't mind. The other thing I find disturbing is that, yeah, this conversation started years ago with, putting in a parking lot and such. And so did the Hennessy Bridge and I-95 projects, but yet we still remind people of lane changes and updates as to what's taking place with those projects. So the statement of, the residents knew about this years ago, to me, I don't buy that. From the time we voted on a capital improvement project in the first year 1 as this sitting council here, to when that first tree was taken down, I don't remember, and I could be wrong, I don't remember any conversations in between. I do remember that first vote being some type of match grant that obviously we didn't get from DM or whoever the other government sources were. So I could be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong on that. I don't remember any other, and I scoured the council meetings from that point to now. And I don't see any other conversations regarding that soccer complex. The other issue I have before I were to vote on this, it's addressing the concerns of the people that showed up to that meeting on March 8th. And what I heard from the city was that we're going to look into this, we're going to look into that. Well, for me, that should have been looked into prior to taking down the first tree. And since the trees are already down, that should be addressed now. Those concerns should also be addressed publicly. And then last, it's the new plan. Have we had any discussions as a council? Have we offered the public any input as to do the new revised plan that was presented on March 8th at the Riverside Rec? That's the first, other than Facebook. That's where I get, most of my, posts and stuff to find out what's going on in my ward. Other than Facebook, the second time I've seen that plan was attending that meeting. So I don't think it's fair to go ahead and approve this without having those, especially the parking lot situation, answered first. Is it going to accommodate the current situation, and is it going to accommodate the new fields potentially? That's one of my biggest concerns.
Well, as I understand it, first of all, this council, all of us unanimously and enthusiastically approved of this whole project during budget workshops. That's when this was brought up. We had, remember that first time we were lauded for having so many budget workshops. We might have had 8 or 10 of them. And the Walmart parking lot was the prior plan from a prior administration, and that was cut down to not having anything that big. And then there would be an all-purpose field. In talking to the groups in the city that use fields, the need is for big fields. We have small fields throughout the city. What we don't have are some big fields, such as the Riverside Middle School had to be moved out of their home field the other day because there wasn't room, because they play in a bigger field. They don't play on little league size fields. So this has been approved. The emails, now you said residents didn't know. I can show you residents that contacted me that knew, and they were upset at what we were waiting for. And then what happened in the long interim, they wake up one day and some trees are cut down, not as many as people were thinking, but enough to get a parking lot in there. When I stood there today and looked back, you can't see the school. Basically peeking through the trees, you could see a little of it. I will tell you that it might be an error that it mentions in the, I think this was for historical value, that the athletic field, it's not a soccer field. It would be junior townies and all purpose. That is not part of this. This amount is just for the parking lot, the other things they're talking about doing. I think attached to the agenda list, will list the other bidders, the grading, the walking paths in that area. So there is just a request for the parking situation, not the field. But I'm ready to move on this. How many years are we gonna wait? Or else we tell the neighborhood, forget it, we're not doing it, and continue to double and triple park on Somerset Road Street and in front of everyone's house, and have utter chaos. The police were called the other day and they you couldn't move immovable objects. There was no place to get these cars to go. They were all jammed up. And it's a good plan. In the end, I think there was some haste in finally getting it done. And, one of the city directors did say to me, we probably should have said to people, okay, today's the day. We've been talking about it. Today, we're going to go in and start work on this. So that's about all I can add. I still support this, and I want to get this thing done.
that I recall, if I'm not mistaken, this goes back to 2014, 2015. My first term on the council was introduced by former Councilman Tim Conley. Somehow it got lost in the shuffle for some apparent reason with a number of other projects that were approved during that time, but never materialized. So it was on the book for some time. They got lost in the shuffle. Not only this particular project, but a number of projects as well. And I think there was somewhat of a discussion, if I'm not mistaken, I had mentioned when I'm talking about this evening, with a couple of years ago, or one of the capital improvement or one of the budget hearings that we had as well. That's what I recall as a recollection of what we talked about, but this has been 2014, 2015 on the books, never materialized again with a host of other projects that were on the books at that point in time. And why it never materialized, I can't answer that question. And that's how or what drove the conversation about projects that we have and they should be completed prior to or within a 1 year period. That was a part of the discussions we had as well, because we were playing catch up. So we would approve, but it would take, a number of years for those projects to come to fruition because we're on a back order. We're working on the projects that were approved back in 2014, 2015, 2016. And here it was at the time, 2017, 2018. And we couldn't even approve more projects and we couldn't catch up to the projects that were approved in the past. So.
And I would have no problem striking that first sentence. I think it was for historical reference because it's not included in the financial plan, but it talks about March 29th, 2022, the city received 3 bids for construction of a multi-use athletic field and associated parking lot. So that can be stricken. If you look at the second paragraph, it explains it a little more. The amount of $412,000. The work will consist of completing a porous pavement parking lot, wood guardrails, striping, and paving of walking paths. And that's what we're doing with this. It's not a field. The field will be discussed down the line. May happen, that may never happen, but this is going to go a long way to assisting that neighborhood.
Yeah, what the council approved, it was the October 29th, 2019 meeting. That was when we had the subsequent capital. Am I not on? Oh, the subsequent capital after we had approved that initial budget. And the council approved the, say, joint field parking lot strategy. The way that I understand this now is the price of putting a field installation has gone up so much from 2019, like everything else. So let's get the parking lot installed. I think that's the intent of this resolution.
So with that, do I need 2 motions to,
if there's any further discussion?
Do we know when, with the approval of this resolution, when they would start doing the work on this? I know we're now starting the season for the games and practices. So do we see them doing this season or are we doing this next season?
I don't see it being ready for this year. I'd let the expert answer.
Yeah, the goal is actually to get the contractor out there this summer while school's out and have it ready to go by the fall. This Yard Works contractor, their sub is actually Pawtucket Hot Mix, who's the company that's paving all our streets. So they know what they're doing. They can get the job done. So that's the hopeful time schedule for that.
So for clarification, this hasn't approved yet, but we're looking to start this summer and complete it by the fall.
Correct.
What about those projects that were already completed last year?
I don't know which project you're referring to.
Capital improvement projects. I won't put you on the spot, but there's a lot of other projects also that I'm thinking of that were already approved as well.
Yeah, we're knocking them off the list. We're doing the best we can.
I know.
So, this one was lengthy. This did take DEM approval.
Okay.
Wanted a lot of stormwater calculations.
Yep.
Groundwater information. So that was all reviewed and looked at by DEM.
Okay, well, that makes.
And then
some
just in
sense.
regards to the bid itself, we did break it out. So there was a specific lump sum amount for the multi-use field. And then there was a specific lump sum amount construct the parking lot. So that's how we know the amounts that they gave us. They were two separate lump sum items.
And this amount is just for the parking lot.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And a discussion at the time was about the water table, water where it would be, where it will flow to. Has that been taken care of? All those calculations that have
Yeah,
been
so it's
completed?
gonna mimic what is happening today.
Okay.
There's no surface runoff. It's all gonna be going into the ground, similar to how it was before. There was some talk about the trees take up water. Basically, the amount of trees that are still there, there's not gonna be really any difference that you can see. You have a situation like in 2010, where we get 13 inches of rain in 3 days. If you
Gonna
flooded
happen.
before, you're gonna flood this time or the
Get
next time. That's just the reality
I
of
know.
it down there.
That was the biggest concern. That's why. Thank you. Any further discussion from the council? If not, Councilman Rodrick, you want to?
I would move approval of the resolution as read, with the understanding that this does not include an athletic field, but as stated, the parking lot in the amount of $412,000 to Yardworks Incorporated.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by the councilman. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Nay.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next ordinance, please.
Next item is resolution pursuant to RIGL 17-19-7 for local ballot question on November 8th, 2022, related to eminent domain of property within the city of East Providence. Metacomet sponsor Councilwoman Souza and Councilman Morato.
Thank you. I'm just going to read the resolution for those who have not seen or read it. Resolution pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 17-19-7 for local ballot question on the November 8th, 2022, related to eminent domain of properties within the city of East Providence, Metacomet. Whereas state law allows cities and towns to place local questions on the ballot for voters' consideration pursuant to RI General Law 17-19-7, and whereas the former Metacomet golf course and properties were sold to a private developer in October of 2020, and whereas the residents of the city of East Providence have strenuously objected to this development as they believe it will change the landscape and adversely affect the ecology and environmental makeup of the community. And whereas the voters of the city of East Providence should have the opportunity to express their opinion related to the potential taking of this property by eminent domain through a non-binding referendum question. Now therefore be resolved that the City Council of the City of East Providence hereby requests that the East Providence Board of Canvases and the Rhode Island Secretary of State take all appropriate actions to place the following question on the local ballot of the City of East Providence in the general election November 8th, 2022. Quote, shall this East Providence City Council take all appropriate and legal measures to acquire properties located at 500 Veterans Memorial Parkway, map 107, block 15, parcel 1, formerly known as Metacomet Country Club, through eminent domain for open space and recreational use. So there's been a lot of discussion. I think everybody for and against the taking of eminent domain of this property. I know there is good reason on both ends why you're for and against, and they're all valid. So this is on here because obviously we know that this has been going on for over 2 years now, pretty much going into our third year. And quite frankly, this is something that should have been done at the beginning. To be quite honest, the outpour and the discussions should have ensued the council to take this action then versus now. And we subsequently put the cart before the horse and went through the process of finding out whether it was feasible or not. That was the council decided by a majority that they did not think it was feasible or in the best interest of the city. But I think it was something that always should have been put out to the public to make that decision. And then the council could then take action and make those findings after the public had given their full input, not just 28, not just 100, 1,045, but really the whole city to get a real good scope of what people wanted in the city and then see if we could do it. And I think that, to be honest, we can still do that now and see what the outcome is. It's not going to hurt anybody to know what the answer is. I rather have the answer, the honest answer behind closed ballot than have people say to you that they want it and then maybe not really want it, or people who really don't want it and are afraid to come forward and say they don't want it for ridicule or harassment for their neighbors or friends or family members. This is the most transparent way of finding out that answer, and that nobody can deny what it is, whether it's for or against. And I think, in my personal opinion, that is the most beneficial way for us to address and either move forward or close the chapter on this topic in the city, so that we can move on with all the other full wonderful things that are going on in the city. I don't think that it has negatively, in my opinion, again, impacted the growth of the city. Developers still come through the city and are doing wonderful things in our city, and our city continues to move in a positive way. But I am fearful, and I'm going to be quite honest, that the city is going to lose a lot of that home feeling and turn more into a downtown area other than a family community that drew so many people to East Providence. And that's why it's on for, I think, just let the people vote whether you're for or against it. I think it's the people's right to be able to have that option to, in the privacy of their voting at home or in a booth, to make that decision and be once and for all, have the final, not necessarily say, because obviously it comes back to whatever body will then be here in November to continue that discussion or that work, whether they move it forward or let it stand still. I think it's still good to know what the outcome would be.
Thank you, Councilwoman. In receipt of this petition this evening, with over 1,400 signatures, and to be exact, 1,445, if I'm not mistaken, was the number that was given tonight. I look at the petition. The first thing I look at and I read, it reads, "We, the undersigned eligible voters for the city of East Providence, believe that the property at 500 Veterans Memorial Parkway, the former Metacomet Country Golf Club, must be saved for our generations and those to come. We, your constituents, request that the strongest way that a bond referendum be placed on a November 8, 2022 ballot for purchase of the Metacomet for public community use. Let the voters decide." What I don't see on here is a dollar amount. And that's a big concern, because my first question would be, for those who signed this, how much is it going to cost to purchase this? I said rhetorical. Nope, you had your opportunity. Okay, it is, because to me, it's deceitful. When you tell people that you want to sign something, but you do not give a dollar amount, to me, that's being deceitful in a way. However, and the reason why I say that is because I had a constituent who came up to me last week during the police memorial service that they had right in front of the police department. Mr. Roderick was there to be my witness as well. And they talked about how, they were for the eminent domain. Now, when the question was posed to them, well, how much is it going to cost the city, or possibly how much it can cost the city? They said, "Oh, I thought it was free." Mr. Roderick, with my witness, when you have a petition here, okay, and if you're going on a ballot for anything, for any reason, the due diligence needs to be done. I had another woman who contacted me yesterday about voting in favor of this eminent domain. And I asked her, and these were some of the questions that I had. How much is Metacomet worth today, now that it's been rezoned? Can anybody tell me how much it's worth? We know when it was appraised for what it was zoned for, it was $8.4 million. Since then, it's been rezoned. We got a petition here that people are signing have absolutely no idea, no clue to how much. Is it $30 million? Is it $10 million? Could it be $5 million? We don't know, but we want to take it by eminent domain or put it on as a referendum for eminent domain. So that was the first question. And I didn't get an answer from that as well. Has there been appraisal on the property since it's been rezoned? Can anybody answer that question here? No, this is, no, it's rhetorical. It's rhetorical. Please let us, no one interrupt you when you got up here and talk. So allow the same, please. If the property was taken by eminent domain, at what cost to the taxpayers? We had the school committee and the school administration come to us in the joint meetings that we had last week or 2 weeks ago. And they came up with facts, figures, numbers, how much it was going to cost. They did their due diligence leading up to a bottom line that they have for Martin Middle School. Now, I said this 14 months ago about Martin Middle School. We got a school, to me, it's like, let's wait a two. We got a school that needs some serious work to it. And we want to purchase, by eminent domain, by the way, a failed golf course. There was conversation about it being converted back to a golf course. Now there's conversation about it being a park. Just imagine the music that you hear over in Providence that everybody's complaining about today and now, that if you have people going over there and we put it as a park and playing music, what are you going to say about that music at that point in time? I have a lot, this is not the opportunity to shout from the audience, whether you like what I'm saying or not. Whether you don't have to answer my question. They're rhetorical questions. These are things that should have been on here. You had 10 months, folks. You had 10 months to figure this out. From the time it was rezoned, last July, you had 10 months to do the due diligence and the work to figure out the course of this, whether it's through appraisal or whether it's through having a number to take this. To say you want to just put it on for eminent domain.
So Council President, I don't mean to interrupt, but this not what this question is asking. It's not this. So this would be a let's see what people are thinking. And then if there was an overwhelming majority, then there would have to be another ballot question that says, okay, you guys said you wanted it, but this is what it would cost. And this
Councilwoman, you know as well as everybody up here knows it doesn't work that way. You know it doesn't work that way.
No, but
you don't put whether or not we should or should not do it. If you're going to put it on the ballot, put it all out there. Well, let me ask you.
Rules that say that?
Well, let me ask you this.
Specific guidelines.
Can you tell me what the value is of this property since it's been rezoned?
No, and I'm not interested in that question.
Why wouldn't you be interested in it? Because if it's valued at $30 million.
To know is what does the city residents want? We've heard so many different opinions. I want to know by a vote what the residents want, yes or no, and then we can discuss that after. We can it's a conversation after November, after January 2023. That's a conversation then, not today, not for November.
Well, I want to know as a voter what I'm voting on.
You're voting on whether you think that we should acquire a property for the city.
But if we're going to acquire a property for the city, I want to know the cost right up front. Why would I wait?
But we didn't say we were acquiring it. It's asking, do you think we should acquire it?
So then why put it on then? Why put it on then?
To get the answer from the public, to know what the public wants.
We've had, like you said, over 2 years to figure that out.
We didn't take a vote on it, as you said, people email you.
We voted.
People.
Right. But we vote on no different than we vote on everything and anything else on here. No different than all the resolutions that we voted on this evening and the ordinances we voted on this evening. What is different from this? We as a council vote on it. That's how it's always been. Now what? We're going to put it out
the way it always is?
No, because that's the right way of doing it. The council votes.
So the public doesn't have a decision in what?
The council has a decision. The council, we had 2 public hearings. You know that as well as everybody and anybody else did.
Right.
We heard their concerns. We heard their voices.
And a majority were against,
for those who spoke, not overall, for those who spoke.
And I want to know overall. I want to know overall in the community what the general public that don't come to the meetings, that don't send us emails, that don't make the phone calls. I would like to know, and so shouldn't the rest of the council, what the community thinks privately.
So in an event that it comes out to $30 million, what would you do at that point in time?
I don't think that the public, and it goes out to another vote. It goes out to another vote.
What's the other vote to take it?
No, the vote would be for a bond.
For $30 million.
I don't think that's not something that I would support, to be quite honestly, $30 million, but That's not the point. The point is it's going to the people to vote. Did the people know when you put the question on the ballot to have a mayor form of government that it was going to be $100 and something thousand office? That the budget for the administration
hold
was
it,
going to cost and increase every year? Did they know that? I didn't know that.
Because the budget in itself is no different than pretty much the city manager budget.
No, the people.
The city
didn't know.
manager
You just
had,
asked for.
the city manager had a budget
you
as
put a
too.
budget question,
And you voted on that, if I'm
On
not
what?
mistaken.
On what?
City manager form of government, excuse me, mayoral form of government.
Because the people have a right to vote. It's a ballot question. I'm going to deny the public the choice to make their decision.
So you're going to compare mayoral form of government
no.
to having a petition on a docket for the residents to decide whether or not we should take property that we have no dollar amount, no value of what this property is worth.
I'm saying I am voting on giving the people the right to vote on a ballot question. That's what I'm giving the people. The
And I disagree with you
vote
on
on a
that.
ballot question.
And I disagree with you.
That doesn't change your life or it's giving us a decision of what the general public wants.
We as a council voted against eminent domain. 4 of us up here voted against eminent domain. We all
4 of us?
4, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, Councilman Morado, myself,
Yep.
Rodericks, and 4. But that's the process that we always do up here. The majority of votes, we get it, just like I said about any other resolution and any other ordinance that we vote on up here. I'll open up the floor and discussion for others as well.
I would like to interject, please. So, and this is going to be rhetorical also. I represent roughly 10,000 people in my ward. Obviously, we keep talking about how everyone has an opportunity to come into these chambers and voice their opinion for or against something. But I can tell you one thing, I know you're not going to fit 10,000 people in this room. So what is my job as an elected official? My job, and I keep saying this and I will keep saying it until the day I get kicked out of office. I am the voice of my residents. I am the voice of the people who elected me. I am the voice of the people who didn't elect me, whether they voted for me or not, registered or unregistered voters. And since this conversation has taken place 2+ years ago, the conversation has not stopped. I keep hearing the same concerns. I keep hearing the same asks of keeping it green. But what has changed, as has been mentioned at that podium public comment, what has changed since the last vote? Well, we as a council, we have voted on changing ordinances. We changed a Airbnb ordinance within a year of passing that ordinance. We tweaked it. Things are meant to change. But one of the other factors that has been now introduced is opera money. We see $59,000 that was just voted to complete the parking lot at the rec. I heard there was discussions of one council meeting that I wasn't here that potentially $6.4 million going to the arts district. So apparently opera money can be used for other things other than water and sewer infrastructure. I believe, did the rules change? I don't know. As far as placing the dollar amount on this resolution, the way it was explained to me by the solicitor is that it did not require for this particular vote, because the original draft that I had proposed did have a dollar amount. Now, the way it was introduced, I believe it to be accurate. You introduce it first, see if the public wants to take it by eminent domain. And if so, then you do your studies. As far as the school department doing what they did to get those numbers, they had the departments and the people to get them those numbers. We don't have that. We never did, because the administration roadblocked this process from the beginning. So what we're asking is, put it on the ballot. If the people do want eminent domain, then I guess he has to fulfill that. As he keeps mentioning that, it was the people's wishes to have a rec center back in when it was voted in 2012, right? Well, it's going to be the people's wishes to look into eminent domain if it was to be passed by the voters in November. And on the flip side of that, if the voters say, no, we don't want this by eminent domain, then we know the answer. But I'm here representing the people, all the people in my ward. And the conversation has not stopped since this conversation started 2 years ago. And I have to do my due diligence in bringing this up and reintroducing it. That's all.
Then why did you vote to take it or not to take it by eminent domain?
Because at the time.
At $8.4 million.
Correct. Because at that point, so let's look at the factors into that.
Mhm.
Was the administration going to be, helpful in finding that money? No. Is the administration going to provide a plan as part of the eminent domain statutes? You have to provide a plan as to what you're going to do that land prior to entering into Superior Court? No. And everything else that comes with eminent domain. We weren't going to get that help.
But we had and hired our own separate attorney to do that work for us, not the administration. We can't
Correct.
continue to
And-
blame
and-
the administration.
correct,
We
correct.
hired the attorney.
Correct. Which
attorney-
even then was I had some questions about that, but so
So
we
you
did-
voted, you wanted
But
for,
the change now is apparently we have newfound money and we still have, the public that still wants this to be green space.
you can't.
So why not have it, why not have the public make that decision one way or another, once and for all?
You can't use American Rescue money, you know that as well as I do, to take property by eminent domain, which we all know is not going to be given to the city. It's not, it's going to be a fight on the city's hand. And that's what our attorney that we hired wanted, or you all wanted, told us. And that was at that time before it was rezoned. Since then, it's been rezoned. And with that being said, that price has escalated from here to 8.4 to really, nobody even knows how much, at least we don't know. But we do know that it at least doubled, perhaps even tripled at this point in time, because what could be placed on that parcel of land? So what you're saying is, let's put the cart in front of the horse and let's put it out for the public just to see where the public stands. I'm saying here is, it's a hostile takeover. You're not going to get American Rescue money to use as collateral or to take this property or use the proceeds from that as to purchase this property. By no means. And we talked about, and the attorney told us at that point in time, we got to get the money and we got to get that money and put it in the bank all at once. It's not contributed little by little, or we'll put in 5 million today, 2 million next week, and $1 million the week after. If it's 8.4, whatever the judge decided, or $10 million at that time prior to it being rezoned, we got to take that $10 million, $8.4 million, and put that in the bank. The question came, where's that money going to come from? And we, the super majority on this, including yourself, decided at 8.4, it's not worth it. We can't afford it. However, now that it's rezoned, and now that the value is perhaps even tripled at this point in time, we want to put it out for the people to vote on.
So the point of this is, instead of having another reevaluation and such and spending that money, the point of this is, does the public want the city to take this over by eminent domain? If the answer is yes, then that would have to be conducted. Then we would have to get a number as to what, how dollar amount for a bond, if that's the case. And then the public would have to vote again.
So then why wasn't this proposed last year?
Because
or the year
I
before?
didn't think of that last year, the year before. I'm thinking about it now.
Well, we're
Mr.
laying all
President.
this
I wish
stuff-
I did think about this at the beginning, because that would have been my whole point in argument right off the bat.
But
Mr.
we
President,
laid this all out on it, please.
If I may, and I
Give
just want to
others
go back to
opportunity to
something that
speak.
was said a little bit earlier. And it was a question as to when I disagreed with the idea of eminent domain. I thought I did a decent job explaining that back in the April meeting. We had a special meeting, April 29th last year, where we heard the results. We took the vote whether or not to pursue eminent domain. We voted as a council 4-1 not to pursue eminent domain. The salient facts in that particular vote were that the appraisal came back, and I just want to correct the amount, was $8,230,000. was what the appraised value of the land was. That was the starting point at which we would have to lay out immediately $8,230,000 to condemn or take the property. At that point, we would enter into any kind of litigation that would take place, because almost certainly the property owner wasn't simply going to say, thank you for the $8,230,000, we're going to walk away. Other considerations were not just where we were going to get the money, but what we were going to do with lost revenue from taxes, which at the time was about $110,000 per year, and has certainly gone up. Also, what we were going to do with the property was a key discussion, because if you recall, there were some thoughts as to whether, well, we could take the property and lease it as a golf course. There was some concern as to whether or not that was taking property for economic development versus recreational use, which would require 150% of the fair value versus, or $12 million effectively instead of $8 million. We all decided collectively, 4-1, not to go up that route. Later on, we had the rezoning hearing on July 20th, and what was proposed to us via the developer was a development that would preserve about half of the space as it is in the future. 9 holes of golf course, 9.6 acres. It's about 9.6 acres along the Lion Avenue and Fort Street boundary, deeded to the city by way of ordinance. And that was ultimately the vote that we took. That was a 3-2 vote when we changed the ordinance. Upon changing the ordinance, a couple of things I want to point out to, because as Councilwoman Souza says, it's important for us to pay attention to what's going on in the community citywide when we make decisions. We have to think about the entire city, not pockets of residents, no matter how passionate they are, not groups or segments of voters, the entire city. These are salient facts, and these can be verified. In the last 40 years, our population has gone from about 52,000 in the city of East Providence, this is according to census, to about 47,000, which means we've lost just short of 10% of our population. What's really key there are the demographics. Over the course of that time, we have lost 2/3 of our 15 to 19-year-old population. In 1980, we had about 4,500 people in the city at age 15 to 19. Today, we have about 1,500. You hear it everywhere. You hear it from the police. Where are the applicants? You hear it from the coaches. Where are the kids in the field? The kids are not there. People are not making babies at the rate that they used to. 1, families are not moving into the city at the rate that they used to. 2, and they're not moving into the city at the rate that they used to because we are collectively getting older in the city. At the same time that our younger population has declined, our retired or over 75 population has increased substantially to the tune of about 20% over that same 40 years. Not making this up. Everyone can go check that out. The key issue for anybody looking for a place to live is housing. If there is not housing, people will not move in. Young families are not in a position to buy single-family houses, certainly when the single-family houses are not on the market or under the market conditions that we've observed over the last year. If we do not increase housing, if we do not make opportunities for people to get not just housing, starter housing, affordable housing, we will continue to put the increasing costs of our city on the backs of an increasingly retired population. It's just fact. It's not fair to that population, and it's not sustainable fiscally. So we need to take steps to reverse that. Housing is a key part of that step. Housing is a key part of this development, and all of that is why I will never support eminent domain. But let's put that aside and let's focus on the resolution tonight, because whether or not I support eminent domain, we have for consideration tonight whether or not we put this resolution on or make this resolution or make this statement available via a ballot. My concerns with the resolution, eminent domain aside, are as follows. that fourth paragraph, that fourth whereas, which talks about a non-binding referendum question. I don't know what that means, especially when in conjunction with, shall the city council take all appropriate and legal measures to acquire property located the Metacomet property. We took all appropriate and legal measures to start that process. We hired an attorney expert in eminent domain. We acquired an appraisal to find out what it would take to go down that route, and we decided we would not. Let me ask this. If the voters don't vote on this, does that preclude a city council in the future from pursuing eminent domain of this property? No, it doesn't. Any council at any time can take up the exact same path that we started up a year ago, regardless of what the residents say. If the residents say, yes, do it, does the council need to go up that route and start up eminent domain procedures? I would contend that they do not, no matter what this resolution says. Any council can look at it and go, no, the cost is exorbitant. No, we really want that development. No, all of a sudden there's 40,000 petitions the other way saying, don't do it. For any number of reasons, this resolution, I think, is poorly worded. We could put a resolution on a ballot or a ballot item on a ballot in November that say, should we reduce taxes by 25%? I guarantee that's going to pass until you start telling people, okay, by doing that, we're going to have to cut police budget, fire budget, school budget, because we won't have the money to fund the city. There are any number of things we could put out for vote that will certainly pass, but are not good for the city. And I put this in that category.
So why don't we just, as a council, vote on the $148 million and, skip that process of putting it on a ballot also?
Because that process is required by state law under all of the various procedures that we have to go through in order to, and that process has been fulfilled. And I would tell you that that process has been vetted out and proven by the edifice standing at 2000 Pawtucket Avenue.
So this process, as explained to me, is the first step into getting to the second process for the school of the 148 million.
I'm not sure what process you're talking about.
I'll defer to the solicitor on that one.
Well, let me be clear about this. So last week, I think on Monday or Tuesday, I was given two resolutions from Councilwoman Susan and yourself. One was a $15 million resolution asking the General Assembly to pass a bond issue for eminent domain. Right? As I pointed out in emails to you at that point, I think I called you, you called me, and we talked about it. And I said, this resolution would ask the General Assembly to give the city of East Providence the ability to float $15 million of bonds for eminent domain. I pointed out that the resolution as drafted, which I did not draft, did not even have a provision in it for voter approval. So that had to be changed. And if you recall, we and I talked, we said we were going to change that. Subsequent to that, I got a call from Councilman Souza and emails went back and forth and said, well, we really don't want to put the price on there or the amount because we don't know the amount, which is fair. We just wanted to get a general sense of the public of what they wanted. And I said, well, you don't need to get up. You don't have to ask the General Assembly to do that. You can just ask through this process whether or not they would like to take the property by eminent domain. It's a non-binding question. The reason why it's non-binding is because under the 1965 law that allows the city to take property by eminent domain, only the council can determine whether or not a property is taken by eminent domain. Now, I understand it gives you the sense of what the people want, but only the council can decide that. So those are the two options that I gave you. Well, you gave me one option, I gave you another option, and you just thought this was the better option to go through. I specifically asked, do you want me to take the $15 million one off? And I got an email back, please do so. So that's why we're here today on that. So that's the process that played out. I have no dog in this fight. And I do what I'm told, and I'm trying to put it in legal form, and that's what I did.
Yeah, so based on our conversation, this is the referendum, the resolution that was drafted and put before us today. So if you have any, so the wording and all of that was what our city solicitor assisted with in putting that. It was not, I didn't choose how it was worded. It was based on our conversation and the experience that has been observed was with how it led to how it was written.
Right, I'm not attacking you and I'm not
No, I'm
attacking the
just saying.
solicitor for the language.
Yeah.
I just don't understand what we would be asking the voters to sign, right? Because I'll go back to my tax example.
Mhm.
We go out and we ask, let's get the voice of the people. Do the people want to pay lower taxes? Yeah, I bet they do, right? And I bet they're going to vote for that. So then do we figure out how much lower
Yeah,
the
but that's
tax
something
is?
we know. That's an obvious. I can't say that it's obvious that I know 1/3 of the city wants this or 2/3 of the city
Well, we
don't
could
want
fund a
it.
city survey to do the same thing. We could have we could put out a survey for every single person to say, you know, yes, I
Well,
support
isn't
it or
that
no,
what
I
this
don't.
is?
No, this is a ballot item.
Right.
This is a vote.
Right, it's surveying what the community, it's asking the community what the voters that in the community, what they think.
Via a ballot. And when do we do that on anything? When do we
that
do a survey?
all the time. We do that for mayor form of government. We do that for bond referendum.
No, the mayor form of government contained very specific language saying what a mayoral form of government was going to look like.
Commission at the last 2 years ago. We asked the voters to add that into the charter, to have a charter review.
To add specific language into the charter.
We ask questions all the time of the public through referendum.
Only the voters can change the charter.
Well, that's why you do a charter, right? That's,
But this isn't a non-binding, again, as the solicitor mentioned, whatever, it would still, this body or whatever body is up here would have to make those decisions. This is just to get a black and white of the voters in the city, what it is that they want. That's it.
it's not asking them that question, though. It's saying, what do you want, but not telling them what it costs.
But that wouldn't be now.
I don't even know how you ask that question without telling. So for example, when we sat down to go through this process, which per state law, right? Per state law, the council, not our laws, not our charter, per the state law for eminent domain for the city, we must make the decision, right? We can't decide to kick it out to the voters and give the decision to the voters. It's state law, right? We had to make the decision. The first step in making the decision was finding out how much it cost. When we found out how much it cost, we chose to go in another direction. That's what we did, right? We didn't sit here and say, yeah, let's vote to take it and then figure out how much it costs. That's reckless. I mean, I don't know another way of looking at that other than it's fiduciary suicide. It doesn't make any sense at all.
So, Mr. President. Yes, while ago, Jane Crevier did ask me, so well, what if we get a petition and what if we present that? And I said, sure, I listen to anything at any time and willing to listen to new information. But, you know, I'm not hearing anything new. It's the same passionate response from the same people. And I, as somebody said here earlier, I applaud the passion. The day I talked about earlier at that crowded Riverside rec field with all kinds of things going on, Heather Andrade was there with the petition, talking to people and moving around, and her and I talked, and I told her, well, it's a good job. You know, you're doing a good job. You're passionate. And we talked more about the game going on and other things, but we did talk, and that's what we need to do continually. But this council has voted almost unanimously at times that we can't afford a lot of money for eminent domain. When it came to the formal vote, it was 4-1. This resolution is vague, and we've done the due diligence. We hired at the insistence of KMG and some others, which I wasn't crazy about at first, but we hired an independent lawyer. I said, well, let's just hire the appraiser ourselves and get it done. There's like one appraiser in New England who does this, but we wanted a lawyer, so we hired the lawyer. I don't know what it eventually was, $40,000 for everything. the attorney, the appraiser, both told us that this is not a path you really can afford to go on. And since I do hear from a lot of other people that are happy with the compromise that we have. We have the entire Fisher Street area is going to remain as it is now, only better. Landscaped, better looking, old fencing taken down. That answer from that neighborhood was granted. Their concerns. Whether it's golf or not, 9 holes that take up golf is going to be left. As you drive down the parkway from Riverside, as you're driving down the parkway, you're going to see what you see now for a good portion. And there'll be rotaries and some other things, and that's, part of it. But you're going to see all of that land. And if it doesn't make the public-private golf course, it can never be developed, can never be built on. It's going to be deeded to the city with the company, with the developer doing all the maintenance for it. But we will own it. So I've heard from many people who are happy with that compromise. People are talking about losing public space. We're not losing public space. We're not selling Crescent Park. We're not selling Hunts Mills. We're not selling Pierce Stadium. We're not selling public lands, which we do have a lot of. We're not selling Grassy Plain. We're not selling Sabin Point and beautiful Sabin Point Beach. Those are public lands, which are quite substantial for a city this size. And I suspect a council in the future will never move to try to sell those public lands. This was a private sale, which I don't think was handled well by the original owners, and who sold a bill of goods to their membership. And that all fell apart. So we now have a compromise proposal, which I think suits us. And we're not talking about losing public lands. And we have a middle school to fix with the good plan. And we have some monies to spend for that. I can't support this resolution. For those reasons, I won't repeat other things that have been said here about the actual resolution itself.
Thank you, Councilman. All I would ask is that you respect the fact that when someone speaks up here, please don't heckle them. When you all came up and had the opportunity, not anyone up here interrupt you at any point in time or out there, and all I ask is the same in return. We went through a due process, as we all indicated here this evening, and in addition to that, and went through the court of law. So not only here did it not work, it didn't work in the court of law as well. So to say that we didn't do a due process, I just don't understand that. However, I'm going to leave it at this point in time. If there's any further discussion, please speak your piece now, or otherwise, Councilwoman, if you want to proceed with
Thank you. So
with a motion.
for the reasons that I put this on the docket was to have the people of the city, the voters of the city of East Providence to have a voice. That is the intent of this, to hear that voice and to see that voice collectively throughout the city, and that all elected officials could see that for themselves. So that's why it's here, and that's why I will move to approve the resolution as read earlier this evening.
Okay, will there be a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Nay.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Nay.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Nay. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is a resolution memorializing the General Assembly to enact legislation authorizing the city of East Providence with the approval of the qualified electors to issue not to exceed $148 million general obligation bonds, notes, and construction, renovation, improvement, alteration, repair, furnishing, and equipping of schools and school facilities in the city, subject to approval of state housing aid and a reimbursement rate or state share ratio of not less than 48.5% for expenditures eligible for state aid, and provided that the authorization shall be reduced by any grant received from the School Building Authority Capital Fund. Sponsor, Councilman Cohen.
So I'd like to, I know we had the joint meeting between the school committee and the city council a couple of weeks ago now. And what we had in that meeting was sort of an explanation of the need, an explanation of the proposed plan to again leverage state reimbursement for school construction needs, specifically for Martin Middle School and for Waddington Elementary School. I'd like to invite to the podium, Mr. President, if I may, Superintendent Crowley, and I believe Sam Bradner is here, our OPM, for that effort to come up and kind of give us an overview of that need and that plan, and then we can proceed with discussion.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As we mentioned when we were here a couple of weeks ago, the state of Rhode Island is putting forward another construction bond in the amount of anywhere from $250 million to $300 million for schools construction. The Rhode Island Department of Education came to East Providence, and because we had done such a good job with our high school and the use of those funds, they asked us if we would be interested in applying for the construction bond again for Martin Middle School. We also included in that Waddington Elementary School because both of those schools have some safety issues besides the educational issues of open classrooms. So when we looked into it, your housing aid went from 54.5 to 48.5, which means it's less, which means East Providence is doing much better. So on one hand, that's very good, but on the other hand, it lowers the amount of housing aid. They are having more incentives, we feel, and we're promised those incentives will be known right up front. We've already seen the sheet with the incentives on it from the Rhode Island Department of Education, feel that we will have 20% in those incentives. So this $148 million bond for construction will actually cost the city something like, now, please, this is not exact, between 42 and $44 million. The construction that we'll be doing on both schools will be reimbursable construction. On the high school, if you remember, 138 million was reimbursable. We wanted to go above and beyond in places like our gymnasium and our auditorium. That's not the case in these schools. So we would be staying within the amount that is reimbursable. In both those schools, we're not ripping them down. For example, at Martin, we're preserving the gymnasium, we're preserving the auditorium, we're preserving the workout room. So there are areas of the school that are going to be preserved. We're also combining pre-K and special ed pre-K that now housed in Oldham and moving them all down into Martin Middle School. So they'll all be together. We're adding 2 extra classrooms. So now we'll be able to accept approximately half the number of kindergarten students that apply each year to the city of East Providence, which would be about 200. We get about 400 applications. So we're on our way to that universal pre-K that we think will be coming down in the next couple of years. I won't be here to see it, but we're preparing for it. Oldham will be kept as a school because again, we have Waddington and Waddington's numbers are quite high. And so there may be an overflow or some type of redistricting of grades as we look forward with Oldham.
Could you, just for edification, I think some people have been away from daily issues. When you say Oldham, could you describe, we're talking about the old Meadowcrest building?
Yes.
On Bott Drive.
Yes.
Not the Oldham by the carousel.
No,
Okay.
not that old one. Yes, no, the old one, the new one. So those are our figures right now. We need to have this resolution passed. The school committee has moved it to you. The school committee did not have to sign it, but city council does have to sign the resolution. We needed to get into Greg Maury's hands. Tonight would be preferable, but tomorrow would be okay because it has to go through a process now in the House and Senate in order to be realized on the ballot for November. Now, Sam is here. He showed you some of the design in Waddington, and we have a lot of Waddington teachers and the principal back there in the last row. We have classrooms that are open on the second floors. We need to be enclosing those classrooms. We need to be putting new windows in throughout the school as well. And then it'll be a much larger construction at Martin Middle School, which has all open space classrooms, which are not in compliance with the basic education plan or the safety of the students right now. So this project will take, it's not going to be as quick as the high school was. It could be 4 to 6 years before this project is complete, because we have to do the project while the students are in school. Now, if the bond does pass and East Providence decides not to use the money, you are locked in at that amount for 5 years. You can hold that money for 5 years. But you'd have to use it within a 5-year period of time.
May I just clarify, we would also be locked in at the higher rate of 48% because there's every indication that our school aid rate
go
is
down
going to
next year to-
decrease next year.
42, yes.
42%. And if the current trend follows, we can anticipate that that will decrease further.
I mean, if the bond passes, I see no reason to do that, the resources are there to proceed ahead. Now, I don't want you to think we're not doing anything with our other schools. We have to submit a facilities plan that I will be monitoring. It's due on September 15th, stage 1. This is what the resolution will allow us to do. It will contain a facilities plan for all of our schools. And we have been keeping up. We've showed you film of the windows, the boilers, the pavement that we have done, all of projects, the foyers that we have done on the 2 schools, several of the schools for safety reasons. So we have been keeping up with our other elementary schools, but the Waddington Elementary and Martin are in need of construction. So if you have any questions of Sam, if you want any details of the project, Sam is right here. You need them again? No.
I'm good. No, it was a great presentation.
May I just ask, well, I've got the 2 of you up there and I don't know who's better suited to field this question, might even be Craig. But the purpose of this resolution is to request essentially that the General Assembly enacts enabling legislation permitting the city of East Providence to go to a ballot requesting an amount not exceeding $148 million in the November ballot, correct?
Right.
And
yes,
the urgency in this particular resolution is that the session is coming to a close.
Correct.
And if we're going to get that enabling legislation in time to be able to get it onto a ballot, we need to get it in the General Assembly's hands.
With that
pronto.
48.5% reimbursement.
48.5%.
Next year, you get down to 42.5. All right, so you go down further. So yes, this would be the ideal time to do that.
And if I may ask, Sam, if you could just, without going into detail, what is the cost for Martin Middle School in addition to what is the cost for Waddington, and give us the total?
Sure. Thank you. Sam Bradner, Pereira Group, or the owner's project manager for the school district and the school committee. So, and again, very high level numbers because we've done this first assessment to get us to this point today. We're going to, as we mentioned to the joint meeting 2 weeks ago, we're going to continue to do a much deeper dive into concept development all the way through schematic design and then actual further cost estimating before we submit the formal stage 2 in September. Roughly of the total construction cost, which is a subset of the 148 million, I think approximately 6 million was dedicated to Waddington, with the balance of those hard costs, which you saw that breakdown in the budget you saw, was dedicated to the work at Martin Middle. And then all the remaining costs are those soft costs, owner costs, furniture, fixtures, technology, all those things that kind of get put into the building as part of that process.
And the reason that the Martin project is a much bigger effort is because we're essentially erasing the open concept of the houses that are currently there. We're building stacked floors, or we're proposing to build stacked floors 6th, 7th, and 8th of new classroom space, which I believe the intent is that that's going to look a lot like the new high school classroom space. And to also add that pre-K, those 14 pre-K classrooms, which are designed specifically for little ones.
That's correct. Yes. Any other questions?
Just one last from me. So we're keeping the gymnasium, we're keeping the auditorium, both are actually pretty nice. We're keeping the cafeteria. Are we having the same entrance to the school?
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Design sheet.
Yeah, the goal would be with the new wings on the north and the south of the building, if you recall our presentation 2 weeks ago, that will allow the existing academic wing, which is the easternmost portion of the building, to be removed and allow for a new sequence of entry, separate entrances for the middle school and the pre-K, so that really you're truly separating those two groups of students, which is critical. And then also allowing for better circulation around the property, access, as well as the opportunity to introduce informal but playing fields on the front of the building or recreation space on the front of the building as it faces the east.
Great, thank you.
And just so people understand, students are currently right now at Martin Middle School passing through one, sometimes two classrooms to get to their classroom. Sometimes three. So in an event that a student needs to go to the facilities or the bathroom, they have to, it's a distraction for other classes as well, because they have to cut through one class to the next class.
And the noise level.
The noise level, there's no arts room at this point in time. There's no lab for the robotic team, if I'm not mistaken, which was talked about as well. And you have removable walls.
Correct.
That divide the classrooms currently right now that Martin Middle School has. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, I'm
good with questions.
I do promise you this. This is the last time you'll see me up here asking for money. Thanks for everything. It was very nice working with all of you. I really appreciate it.
We've been told not to bank on that.
Best of luck.
Thank you. Councilman Cahoon.
So if there are no further questions, I will move to approve the resolution pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 17-19-17. Oh, sorry, wrong one. But we already did that one. Move to approve the resolution memorializing the General Assembly to enact legislation authorizing the city of East Providence with the approval of the qualified electors to issue not to exceed $148 million general obligation bonds, notes, and construction, renovation, improvement, alteration, repair, furnishing, and equipping of schools and school facilities in the city, subject to approval of state housing aid at a reimbursement rate or state share ratio of not less than 48.5% for expenditures eligible for state aid, and provided that the authorization shall be reduced by any grant received from the School Building Authority Capital Fund.
So before we proceed with a vote, any further discussion on this from the council? With no further discussion, we have a motion on the floor by Councilman Cahoon, seconded by Councilwoman Souza. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. Before we proceed, Councilman Cahoon, I just want to commend you on how you broke that down with Metacomet, step by step, month by month, year by year, and how you broke that down. I mean, you brought it right up to the T as everything that happened from day one to the end of our final vote on that. So I want to thank you for breaking that down step by step, sir. Next item, please.
Next item, introduction of ordinances for discussion and possible vote. The first one is an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 8 of the revised ordinances of the City of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended entitled Licenses and Business Regulations. The summary is tracking, acquisition, enforcement, and penalties for persons licensed for metal transactions. The sponsor is Council Vice President Rodrick.
Thank you, Deputy Clerk. Those teachers better not chastise their students for being loud tomorrow, the way they just exited. Mr. President, members of the council, not going to go into great deal here. I'm just following up on very lengthy discussions that we had prior regarding specifically the theft of catalytic converters throughout the city of East Providence. We had the police chief and other police officials at a prior meeting discussing this. I think we've all received the complaints from residents and business owners about the multiple thefts regarding catalytic converters and similar metals, et cetera. And it certainly has received statewide and national importance as a major problem. So I want to thank Assistant Solicitor Conley, and I think Solicitor Marcello also, and I believe in the legal office, Robin, was it?
No, Dylan, actually, Dylan and Rob. So.
Dylan and Robin, okay, who did most of this work, and I certainly wasn't going to change anything. We've had this, it was emailed to the council, I guess, last week with the docket, so members should have had a chance to go through it. It's just first passage, so there'll be time for a change, but it basically, for those who are here tonight, is making things difficult for thieves who, within a minute or less, will climb underneath your car in a driveway or go to a business where there may be 15 trucks, and with the Sawzall, cut your catalytic converter off, and before you know it, it's being sold somewhere. So there's going to be a process now, should this pass, that talks about keeping date of transactions, name, address, telephone number, signature of the person from whom the old or used metals are purchased or received, as well as a copy or digital image of the person's photo identification. So things like that, that will help us help the police department track these thefts, which have really been a financial burden to many in East Providence and I guess throughout the region. So I'll entertain any questions, and I'm prepared to move for first passage.
Any discussion from the council?
Just curious, Councilman Rodrick, how many junkyards we have in the city? I know there's one off of, see from Wampanoag Trail all the time, just.
Yeah, other than that, and it's not a case sometimes of junkyards. It can be body shops or any business for that matter. Persons involved. We never had a lot of junkyards in the city. We had Young's down by Lucky's, across the street from Lucky's years ago. That's been long gone. This is similar to a Providence ordinance as well. So similar things carry on in other areas, but there specifically, no, there are not a lot of junk yards in East Providence.
There's no further discussion. Did you make a motion, Council?
Not yet, but
Would you wanna make them into?
I would move for first passage, the ordinance and amendment of chapter 8, the revised ordinances 1998 as amended and as supplied here.
Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
Next item is a first and final passage. It's an ordinance and amendment of chapter 19 of the revised ordinances of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled zoning. The summary is Main Street and Neighborhood Center Overlay Districts. The sponsor is Councilman Cahoon and Councilman Morato.
Mr. Morado, would you like to take the lead?
I'm not reading this whole thing.
Oh, I don't think we need to read it.
I have to? Please no. So last year, we passed an ordinance regarding the overlay districting of Taunton Avenue and a section of Riverside to include just that area around Riverside Square. What this amendment is doing, and this ordinance is doing, is extending Bullock's Point all the way to Crescent View to support businesses such as one of the speakers that came up, I forgot your last name, I'm sorry, Doctor.
Lincoln.
That spoke how that would help her business. And if you look at the map, Bullock's Point has mixed use up and down both sides, all the way to Crescent View. So all this ordinance is doing is extending that overlay.
This is a public hearing?
No,
No,
it's introduction.
public hearing.
Is this only
Yep.
Oh, it's not underneath it. Okay.
I just wanted to make one, Bill Fazioli, the planning director, just one suggestion that you might want to consider tonight. So what this overlay does, as Councilman Morado says, is extend the overlay down to Crescent View Avenue, but adds another category, professional office space, and limits it to 4,000 square feet. So what we believe that will, allow for the medical practice on this site as well. The one thing we'd like to probably introduce tonight is a small amendment you might want to consider. I don't know legally if you can consider amendment tonight, but we are in the process of reviewing all of our parking requirements citywide. We're reducing the requirement for professional office space. Right now, it's 1 per 200 square feet of space, but we're in the process of introducing a new ordinance to the planning board where we go from 1 to 500 square feet. So you might want to contemplate including it in this ordinance as well, just to, or you could wait for the new one to come in. So
I mean, it's up to the council, but I prefer to keep it clean. We can either do a separate ordinance, a separate.
yeah, there is. Yeah. So the idea is that we're going to be reducing parking requirements citywide for commercial retail, where 1 per 200 is just a little outdated. So we're going to be requesting probably 1 per 500 for professional office space and so on. So that would impact this ordinance if the other one goes through. I guess it
would automatically apply, right?
Okay. Yes. Right. So that's all I wanted to bring up.
Thank you, Mr. Fazioli.
Anyone else?
So,
It's a public hearing.
okay, but I want to make sure also that we're good with what we have currently on record as opposed to amending at this point in time.
I don't see a need to amend. I don't know if Mr. Morano wants.
I don't see a need either. We can always do that down the road when that other legislation is introduced, so.
Yeah, I just get a little nervous amending zoning ordinance on the fly, so.
Yep. All right, again, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak, please approach the podium.
See, just as we were indicating in the photos, exactly what the current uses are. That's just by taking the GIS data and actually codifying exactly what the current uses are. So you can really see the diversity of uses up and down Bullock Point Avenue, of which there is a lot. I'm sorry, this is Rory Miller speaking. I just wanted to also be clear when we are talking about extending the existing overlay. It's important that we include the language as it's currently applied to the other overlays on Taunton Avenue, Waterman, which I believe we borrowed from Warren, if I remember correctly, which allows for parking relief for commercial uses in the existing footprint of the building. And it's in the language of the ordinance right now. I believe it's like D, subsection D. I don't know how you properly equip it, but
Sorry, by amending the ordinance and extending that's already inclusive. All we're doing really is just extending the physical area, but yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because it wasn't clear to me because I was reading the planning memo and maybe it misunderstood. So sounds like we're good. And I can say, having spoken myself, a number of business owners up and down that street I think it's going to really bring some opportunities for vitality. I cannot say how often I am approached by folks. Just it seems like we've had an explosion of interest in small spaces recently. I just think this is going to be fantastic and really bring some life to Bullock Point Avenue. That is also reflective of what is already there, just refilling those empty storefronts. So thank you for considering this.
To your question, Rory, the only change in this ordinance from what we previously had and to what Mr. Morano explained is where it previously terminated at Fleury and North. It will now extend southward all the way to Crescent View.
Right. I think it's also good, just as something that the planning department is actually go out and we should notify the people who own those buildings right now, just send out some kind of notice because it's a really big opportunity for them to capture some value that's been created in their property and hopefully do something with an empty storefront that's been there for a long time. So some kind of public notification would be really, I think, great.
Other than publication in the paper?
Yeah, like knocking on a door. Like
I mean,
You look like you're in good shape.
I ride my bike on that street.
Again, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium. With no one approaching, public hearing is now closed, and I'll leave this at the pleasure of the council.
Just to add one more point, we do have the planning memo in here where the planning board the planning board got the planning department's recommendation, and the planning board voted unanimously in favor of a recommendation to us to take this action.
Thank you. Anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion for approval as read into record,
First and final passage.
first and final passage.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Councilman Morado. Would anyone like to second that motion?
I'd like to second.
Okay, we have a second by Councilman Cahoon. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morado.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
Next item is an ordinance and amendment of chapter 14 of the revised ordinances of the city of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled Streets and Sidewalks. The summary is to establish a minimum standard for the use of native plants on city property and to promote plant species diversity. The sponsor is Councilwoman Souza.
Thank you. So this ordinance before the council came, as you know, there was a tree commission in the city, and they have been working tirelessly with our urban group to identify trees throughout the city. They have counted, marked the species, identified areas that need improvement. A lot of work has been done with this group of commission members, and I just want to point out that I'm very thankful for them and their hard work, because it is not easy to go around and count all of the trees and document all of the species throughout the cities on public property. So in doing that, and as many people know, as we've seen by the uplifting sidewalks, there have been trees throughout the city that are not planted in, or parks and have not been planted that are appropriate for the area or the space, or that meet the eco environment that we have in the Northeast. So we worked tirelessly researching various communities that have these ordinances, and this is what we are presenting tonight before the council. The intent is to promote the planting of trees throughout the city and on city parks that are native plants to our community, to our area, our region, that are going to thrive and do well and give us all the intent of what trees do, shading and good oxygenation, promote pollinators, things of that nature. And then to avoid planting things that are the opposite. So invasive species that are very difficult to get rid of, choke out other areas, contribute to flooding, and cause a lot of damage, and then funds to help remove or maintain them. It is a pretty lengthy ordinance. I won't go into the whole thing, but the ordinance does designate the commission the ability to present the city with an annual report that tells what the progress is with their collaboration with the public planning department. I know is very much involved in this, and also the Parks Department. They all work collaboratively to make sure that we have met standards. For instance, any of the new plantings must be at least 50% of native species for the city at a minimum. And without going into all of it, I think this is a great thing for us to increase the people talk about green in the city, to help with the heat index that we have currently in the city. If you ever want to attend one of the meetings, it's very interesting to see, once they've mapped out the city, the pockets that there are no trees. I mean, we have an elementary school that probably has 3 trees surrounding its whole property, which is kind of really disappointing once we saw that. So there's a project moving forward to plant beautiful trees in that area and give them some good landscaping and pollinators to beautify that area. And that's just one of the projects that they're working on. White Neck was also, they've done that planting, a large amount of trees were planted in that area. And so it's not just planting of trees, but making sure that the area is sustainable, that we're keeping those trees alive, right? The first 5 years, definitely the first year or two is really important for the vitality of that tree, making sure it gets watered, make sure that we're trimming it properly. Discussions, you know, again, about maintaining is really important too. So this is the introduction to that. And I don't know, Bill, Hannah from the planning department is one of the city's liaisons that works. I mean, her job is, she does phenomenal work and we appreciate her so much. Isn't able to be here tonight. So I don't know if there's anything that you can add to it for her on your behalf. No, okay. It's
Yeah, no, I know, Johannes works very closely with the tree commission, in which the mayor appointed, I think about a year ago. We work closely with the EP Urban Forest. We think native trees are the way to go. And, you know, it's the right tree in the right place. And we're all learning a lot more about trees, I think, in the last 18 months. So, yeah, so we think this is supportive and, you know, they work collaboratively with Tony Vieira and the Parks Department. So there's a lot of education going on. So I think this is a wise piece of legislation.
thank you. So that's.
So if I may, first of all, it's a fantastic idea and thank you for all your work with, you know, tree commission and local experts in trying to figure this out. There's a couple of questions I have kind of going forward, not to do specifically with this ordinance, but definitely related. We hear all the time that, you know, when we have to remove a tree, for whatever reason it is, it's sick, it's tearing something up, it has to go. Simply replacing that with, you know, a sapling or a younger tree doesn't obviously confer the same benefit, and that makes good sense. I'm wondering, you know, as you talk to this group, is there's an idea of say we have to remove a city tree. Is there a way to kind of balance that by saying, all right, one city tree removed means we've got to plant 5 or 6 saplings somewhere else to kind of make up for that overall from a heat index, you know, from a gas exchange, whatever it might be. The other thing that I read, you know, in reading this ordinance and reading a couple of things, one thing that was kind of interesting is, and, you know, and I have a biology degree and a bioinformatics degree. And so my expertise is in very small stuff, not big living things, but, you know, little bugs and DNA. And one of the things that I read that was really interesting was this concept of ancient trees, right? You know, the bigger they get, the bigger the trunks they get. And they have, you know, not just the fact that, you know, there's a lot more exchange, there's a lot more kind of nutrients that they produce, but they have locked in within their DNA kind of the secret to getting old, right? So they're hardier, and by, you know, maybe taking seed products from those particular trees and planting from those, you're giving a sapling a head start, right? Because it's got good parentage, if you want. Right. So those are just a couple of ideas that, you know, I kind of ran across, and I wonder, you know, what the tree commission, you know, might think about those as we look forward, you know, putting together a robust program in the city.
Sure, and I think that's great. I think the tree commission working with the high school in their greenhouse. I mean, they have a beautiful setup over there, and I think that would be an excellent opportunity to maybe have some of those seedlings be started over there and then transplanted when they're available. I know as of right now, so this council did allocate funds for that commission to support the purchasing and planting of trees annually. I know in the meetings we have discussed, the tree commission meetings, we have discussed what an annual need would be. What is our goal annually to plant and maintain? So it's not just the purchasing of the trees and using the city to help with the planting or prepping the area, but what is it going to take to keep that a good growing tree, at least for the first 5 years until it's really kind of set root. So that's all things that are being worked out, and that a plan is coming up. And I think at the moment we're taking locations, like what are areas in the city that have a deficit with trees or no trees, and doing that. So I think taking into that conversation has been, all right, so if we're doing a street, like repaving a street, and now we're doing all the sidewalks. There's a lot of sidewalks being done throughout the city. Are we identifying sidewalks that we can put trees in those sidewalks now, as we're putting them out, since they're already dug up, creating good drainage in wells that they're gonna be planting instead of it just being, how they've been planted flush. So thinking a little bit more about how we're planting, where we're planting and what type, is definitely all being put together for an annual report, actually, to come before the council to give a yearly proposal, because that's the intent. They're working on different needs, solutions, and then they want to bring it to the council to, one, inform, and two, to potentially get additional funds to help sustain, because you can only do so many trees within a year, depending on what your funds is, especially since maintenance, I think, is really important. So we have an arborist in the city. Potentially, there might be a need for a second arborist, versus farming out the work to another company. It might be in the best interest of the city to have another arborist so that they can collaboratively work together with our urban forestry and the tree commission.
It's a crazy puzzle.
Yeah. But they're doing good work, working it all out, and it's a great team of minds. So yeah, I'm very hopeful and excited about the work that they're gonna be doing.
Thank you.
With that, I make a motion to approve.
First passage. We have a motion, a second and first passage. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next item, please.
If I may, I had an item that during the resolution for the ballot question earlier in the evening, I did not get the opportunity to make a motion or to verbalize, to enter into the record a correspondence from a resident. And I'd like to do so now. So it is information in regards to the conversation regarding eminent domain. So I move to add.
I don't think you need to make a motion. I just told her to put it in.
Okay.
All right, I was told by the solicitor.
You think-
Because it's passed, so I think we should open up the hearing, put it back, just put not a hearing, but we should just make a motion to include that in the record.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what you told me to do.
Yeah.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I'll
Do what I'm
second.
told.
No, just take a roll call.
We have a motion and a second, sir.
Okay, Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Next mo.
Thank you. Adjourned.
Next item.
Councilwoman Souza, I'll put you down for a motion. Second.
Second.
Please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council Vice President Brito.
Aye.